Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, here live on GRAPPL Patreon. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
We're here on another Sunday night, JP.
Yay.
We'll continue to become more and more normal as we go. Feels like it's not been long since I spoke to you, but first I should just check in and say, are you okay? Because the chat's worried about you, I'm worried about you. Are you all right after this afternoon? That's the biggest question before we get into the wrestling stuff.
Am I all right? If you told me, this is one of those old adages. If you told me at the start of it, we'd get a draw away at City, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. The way it happened, don't get me wrong. I know there'll be a lot of, well, by the letter of the law, Trossard should be sent off. In which case, I look forward to a series of red cards up and down the fucking land from now until the end of the season. And we'll see how much from the letter... All right, I've gone full-blown conspiracy theorist on this. I just think we're refereed in a very different way to some other clubs.
I think everyone says that, though, don't they?
But we are, mate. There are decisions that are given that I'm just like bull and shit, and you won't see. That will never happen to City this season, and it didn't happen to Doku as well in the first half. But I digress. Considering we were down to 10 men, we didn't have as much of the ball, and it was horrible. The goal. I wasn't entirely surprised, but I came away going, do you know what? We're fucking better than them. And that's where I stuck with that. So
Simon asking what stage of grief this is, JP. He's hung in there.
Denial. Yeah, pure denial at this point. Yeah, I'm like, bring it on, bastards. And will I be avoiding most media coverage? Yeah, because it'll be the same collection of arseholes who, trust me, if this happened to Liverpool, you'd hear about it for fucking months.
That's because that's half the media's Liverpool, isn't it? That's the issue.
Exactly.
Apart from when you watch the American stuff. I saw Martin was moaning about the coverage in America. When you get the two Robbies at a half time and inevitably Tim Howard.
Oh yeah.
I was watching the international feeds of the footy on Saturday. I had fucking Michael Owen. I think it was Jermaine Defoe was the other talking head there. Anytime they wheel Michael Owen out, it's a bad one.
Yeah.
I don't know if he counts as a Liverpool veteran at this point. United maybe, Newcastle maybe. I don't know.
He's just an awful, awful pundit. He does that Howard Webb refereeing show, which is just propaganda. I've never seen a show where you come away, if you didn't know anything, you'd be any better for me. It's like, well, all the referees made all the right decisions. Aren't they brilliant at the end? And it's a tough job. To which I say one of a couple of things. If it's a tough job, don't fucking do it. Then if it's too tough and you can't handle it, fuck off. That would be my thing, because I think it's the refereeing that brings things down. I think football has gotten better. I think coaching has gotten better. All the aspects around football have gotten better, except for referees, and they act like the most precious bastards on the face of the earth.
Is that Twitter account still going with they said they were going to do this year with the VAR results and stuff like that ongoing? Weren't they going to be releasing the audio as it went?
Yeah,
the commentators seem to be able to hear it, but we don't. I don't really know where they landed.
Yeah. It's called Mic'd Up, it's Howard Webb and Michael Owen, and I can't think of a show that I would rather watch least than that. And I'll watch some shit, but I will absolutely.
What's the wrestling equivalent to that? What's the wrestling podcast equivalent to that? Howard Webb and Michael Owen. There's some bad ones out there.
Do you know what it was? It'd be the equivalent of. Do you remember when? And I want to say, was it on Sky or was it TNT when Ginny and Trent Seven used to do a podcast about WWE news? Yeah, they did.
They were for progress,
talking kayfabe, and you were just unlistenable, absolutely unlistenable. Terrible, terrible stuff.
I mentioned Lance Storm. They're actually quite used to Lance Storm stuff. He's pedantic to a fault. Although, strangely, all of his criticisms revolve around all the other wrestling companies, but not TNA. Strangely, despite maybe possible because he works there. Who knows? It's probably in there. But yeah, it's one of them. Nobody likes Michael Owen. Casella says in the chat. Yeah, Liverpool don't like him. United don't like him. Newcastle don't like him. Yeah, there's definitely a wrestling equivalent to that. Top 5 favorite films, Michael Owen edition. That could be a 5-1 coming up. Doesn't like films. Only likes.
Yeah.
What was that thing? What was the Michael Owen law? He only likes eating apples. Doesn't like any good food. Doesn't like watching any
Gambling.
films. Gambling, basically. That's his horse racing. Horses.
Horse right.
And doing a posh Scouse accent. I've never recovered from 2 comments I've ever got on podcasts I got. The first was when I first started podcasting and I was being careful and I was minding my P's and Q's. Don't really bother anymore. It's fine. The Americans get confused in the YouTube comments. They can be confused. And so we described him as a less posh Michael Owen, and I never recovered from it, to be honest. I also got Stevie G sound alike, which maybe you could level at Matty and not me. I don't know. Talking about cope and other coping mechanisms, but yeah, don't know about that one. Fell too far.
No, that seems like a stretch too far. I'm trying to think of this is the problem as well, because there'll be specifics about which part of Liverpool and the greater Merseyside area you're from and footballers that you would sound like. And I'm really struggling to one that you think of who you
Jamie Carragher lived probably closest to me, but I don't think we sound alike, you know.
I don't
have as many
like
ums and ahs as he does. I have some, but not as many.
Yeah. I mean, I think you sound more like Jan Molby than you do Jamie Carragher, if I'm honest.
I'll take that.
Like, yeah, I will do that.
You can imagine Jan Molby having an All Japan run or like a Noah run or something like that, couldn't you? Like an international heavyweight, you know, coming in, squashing all the young boys.
He'd have been working with Ray Stevens, wouldn't he, back in the day? That bloke, like Molby looks like if you could see him in a black and white picture in a tag team with Pat Patterson sometime around 1971. But now I'm struggling to think like of who you would sound like. I mean, I think the offensive line is to say you sound like George Harrison or like one of the Beatles or something like that. But that just feels like a form of racism if I say that. So I'll walk away from. I'd have to think of which Gary Ablett, and this is where you'd come in. Do you sound at all like him? No, is that just completely off the reservation? Right.
Answers on a postcard. Let us know who I most sound like, Scouse-wise. Hugh is shit. Tell that to John Browley. The chat is saying here. We are live here with our chat on a Sunday night. If you're enjoying these, let us know. We had a Thursday weekend show, and to be honest, whether we did this Sunday or we waited till Tuesday, I don't think anything was going to change, as there is fuck all going on in the wrestling world. October, November, and December, there's like 3 pay-per-views a month, and that's barely even an exaggeration. Pretty much all of the weekends are taken up. This is a dead one, so we've decided that we're going to do, going to go through a bit of news today, but we're also going to do a bit of an AskGRAPPL session at the end. Bit of a mailbag, I'm calling it. Maybe a mini mailbag, a mini AskGRAPPL. I don't know, but I don't know if we'll go as far as answering questions of who would win in a war games between EastEnders and Coronation Street with a roast dinner on a pole. But we'll have some off-topic stuff in there. But our Discord members and patrons and YouTube members have given us some good questions. If you want to join next time, throw your comments on the Discord. You can join for free. I got a wrestling Alexi Sales. Not having that from Andy Ryan. That's too far.
What about John Bishop?
I'll take it. He's all right. Don't mind John Bishop. He's okay. He had a good run, didn't he? He had one of them. His peak was after his 40s, so maybe that could be true of both of us. Simon says Wednesday might be the greatest day in the history of sport. That's coming up. So we're gonna cover what's coming up there as well. But yeah, it's just the two of us. We don't know. I've decided, said on the Discord today, if I cut Nigel style, if I cut enough promos on Matty, we might get him to join us for the Q&A later on. But I'm not making any promises. That's not a wrestling promise either. Right now, he's a no. But we'll see if he does a run in later and defends the honor of Roman Reigns. Hashtag not my captain. Apparently, I saw him post on the Discord today that apparently Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, he'll be lucky if he passes WrestleMania as a world champion, because apparently it's a shoot in the world of the bloodline now. Just that's still a Fatu. Will Cody Rhodes get out with his life out of this bloodline invasion of SmackDown, JP? Who can tell? But we've got such questions coming up later that might poke him or get him out of his hole, or I'll just continue to run him down in promo style like Nigel. Looking forward to it either way.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm still wondering who's in the other 6 cars with Roman Reigns from SmackDown. I was like, that seems unnecessary. That's just a load of people driving around.
Matty and a load of Roman Reigns avatars from Twitter. Pretty much that's who was in the car.
To take one man to a stadium, like, surely he could have driven himself and just saying, like, I mean, environmentally, that's just terrible. That's Americans for you.
It was Cameron. Apparently, it was Paul Heyman that did that. It came out today. I bet Jeremy Borash had something to do with it. It was very. Either way, very Fast and Furious film. I'm looking forward to breaking that down. Kind of enjoyed it, to be honest. But I enjoy Fast and Furious, so what can you do? Wouldn't want it on me Dynamite, JP. Although the amount of people behind Roman and Cody would probably fit with some of the weekend AEW programming. But again, trying to coach him out of his little box. But yeah, we'll be talking that later on. But yeah, I'd mentioned there, Nigel, we do have a lot of stuff going on in the Patreon and YouTube for YouTube members. We're live here for Spotlight for our patrons. We'll be live for Weekend Show on Thursday. But before that, we will be covering my dealer's choice. I'll keep it short, as patrons have heard me plug it many times. But very excited to cover it, as I revealed at the end of your show, JP, that we will be looking at the man, the myth, the legend, Nigel. One name needed. Am I supposed to know who that is? That's my choice for dealer's choice. We're going to be doing a full deep cut / mixtape / film club / whatever I want it to be. You've all been assigned different bits of homework. Matty's doing the background. He's going to be watching Unify for the very first time. Looking forward to getting his takes on that. Gareth, as we talked about on Weekend Show, is halfway through a rewatch of pretty much Nigel McGuinness's entire career, even the shit stuff when he was a mid-card pure tech / wrestler. # not my Nigel. And I've assigned you, JP, to be in charge of not only the documentary, but maybe the Nigel podcast that seems to have bothered a few people who've listened to it this week, if I'm brutally honest. And even as we speak, JP, I'm continuously adding little things to the little playlist as well, as I do when it's a one name Benno Bond. Oh, none of them must watch, none of them sickos, just context, just extra context there. Look, Simon talked me into watching the Nigel comeback at All In again at the weekend, and I ended up watching it about 7 times in a row. Maybe might even be 10, might even shed a tear. So if I have to watch it, you have to watch it. So I did throw that in, but outside of that, it's just lots more context. But yeah, it's going to be perfect time. We're going to be recording it live Tuesday night. Great little teaser for what's coming on Wednesday. And obviously, the audio will be out for all of our patrons on Wednesday as well. So yeah, the homework is set, JP. School is in session, and I'm the teacher this time.
Oh, you are, mate, honestly. And don't get me wrong, the part of the homework I've been set, I'm quite happy with, except for the podcast bit, which will be listened to on the way to the dentist, which I don't know tomorrow afternoon, which I don't know which will be worse, the dentist or Nigel's
Please put it on
podcast.
speaker.
I if I did that, mate, I'll just get kicked off the bus. I think there's no other way around it, and I'll be walking several miles to get there. I mean, it'll be. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm also very, very fearful of what he goes into, and perhaps like the phrase TMI was really very much put in place for Nigel for that. But I've been watching bits of Last of the McGuinness as well, and I've been really enjoying. I say enjoying it. It's depressing, but I've been enjoying it as well, like going back and watching it, and just it's honestly, after I have to say, after we answered the question about is Bam Bam Bigelow one of the best big men in history, short answer no. After this has been like a really good palate cleanser, I think, in a lot of ways. So there's bits of it I think I'm going to go back to in order to kind of squeeze it in before we're recording of some of the other bits in there for the background, and to plug those gaps as well. Because as we've said a few times, it's like for us, this is very much we like sitting under your learning tree, because I always think of you as like the official Ring of Honor historian, and this is we don't get as many more historic than Nigel there as well. And we'll talk about
going to my ego as well, because I've never seen my own face so much on the Twitter timeline, which is people sharing that Nigel and Brian headbutting the ring post clip that you will have seen in the background to the Nigel podcast footage. Very much enjoyed that, including one cunt, and I've included that in our Discord questions later, who dared to ask how people could possibly think these two could have a better rivalry than Brett and Sean, to which I answered, have Brett and Sean ever actually had a good match? We'll get into that later. No, they fucking haven't. And I wasn't front row for it either, so it doesn't count. Nigel Bryan's the only one, but yeah, that's the type of conversation that's going on this week, and we're gonna. If you're uneducated and you don't know their lore, can't think of a better thing to do this week because we will be covering it, and I'm learning things too. Like I say, the post ROH career of Nigel is a little bit more your ballpark than mine, I would say, JP, with some of the TNA stuff as well. So I've learned a couple of things as well. So school is in session for all of us. Maybe I'll get the blonde tips going, as Andy's mentioned here in the chat for maybe that. I probably look more Cody, I think, than Nigel these days. I kind of feel like Gareth should do it. I feel like I saw Nigel's promo on AEW this week and thought he's got a little bit of the look of Gareth. Is that insulting? I don't know. I feel like they kind of look a little bit alike. Maybe he could pull back those spiked hair that he used to have in his youth. Could be a thing.
Well, I saw pictures of that Gareth had put up. It was his wedding anniversary, which he said that both him and Sarah completely forgot about. And as a result of that, like, you know, because that is the case, I did have a look at those, which is Gareth sans beard, and I was thinking he does actually look a bit like Nigel. That's the Gareth I'm thinking of. That is going, oh yeah.
But is he going to come out with a Nigel fan or not? That's my biggest question. It's always my biggest. You say this, you say the pressure's on, and then it's about like being under my learning tree. It's not. It's about me just trying to hope that Gareth likes the things I like from back in the day. And I don't know with this one. I don't know. I was certain he'd love the Punk Joe series. I was certain he'd love Brian's run, as we covered once on an old mixtape. Can still get that in the archives, which we covered some of the same stuff. But not sure on Nigel. Not sure what he's going to think. Will he prefer the British undercard wrestler Nigel to the main event Larry and both of his arms off and his head off Nigel? We will see. Maybe sex tape Nigel will be more his thing. Who knows? But that's the real test for me. Find out who wins Tuesday night / Wednesday morning if you're listening to the audio on GRAPPL Patreon as well for YouTube members. Just click the button somewhere below this video if you're watching us, and you can join us for a low price as well each week. But that's about it as far as the plugs go, JP. I think for content wise. But anything else going on in the GRAPPL universe want to mention?
Should mention as well, if you're wanting, say, this snazzy ringer t-shirt that I'm wearing, well, the place to visit for that is chopped-tees.com. You'll find the whole GRAPPL collection there. We've got some exciting stuff that's going to be coming out hopefully before the end of the year as well. But then that also leads into Gareth. Again, he's coming up all over the place on here. He's got a fire sale going on for the last remaining few t-shirts, and I think this is really to create space as his children get bigger in the house. Basically, on grapple.bigcartel.com, where we've got the original t-shirts there with the original logos on there for £6 each. Which, what the fuck can you get? It's not even a pint in a city centre that these days. So like I'd get yourself across there, like I say, a closing down sale, like a big golf sale really, with all like fucking banners up. It's not that we're in administration or anything. You don't need to panic about it. It's not like what happened to Woolworths and Borders a few years back, which was you could pick up some bargains.
Great businesses, to be fair.
Yeah, cracking. Woolworths going is still just disgusts me. Honestly, I'm like, that shop had fucking everything in there as well. And that's because all of our stuff is over at Chopped Tees now, which there's some phenomenal stuff on there, and also some good friends of ours, whether it be at Poison Rana, whether it be at Post as well. Some brilliant stuff up on there. WH.
We had the review there, 5 stars, perfect, from Stephen K. Robinson in the US. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Like on the breakfast.
It is, and it's good quality, and it's surviving the washes. I'll say that much. And I'm a sweaty bastard as well, and it's completely surviving these. I mean, I have to put a bit of nappy san in because of all the other shirts and whites, but that's probably too much detail to go into as well. But
I'm just convinced your house now, JP, is just kids head to toe in GRAPPL merch, and it's just a family outfit now. And everyone, all your neighbours are like, "What's GRAPPL? Like, why are they all wearing this GRAPPL brand? Is it the new hotness?" You know.
You say that. Like, there's a GRAPPL hoodie that Vicky will wear, like, from time to time as well. I mean, and it's like, obviously it's for pregnancy, because otherwise it would completely swamp her for most of the time. But at the minute, it seems to be doing a job. Although it is going to be pissing it down here for the next few days, so she'll be hiding it underneath her raincoat, I'd be suspecting. But yeah, if you want all of that, if you want caps, the cap that you're wearing on there as well, that is also at Chopped Tees. We've got some cracking merchandise in there as well. And just to say as well, if you do go through like a kind of like price comparison with other places where you can buy wrestling merch, once you add in taxes, shipping, like, it works out cheaper. Like, to go to Chopped Tees, I would heavily recommend that is the place you go to for your wrestling clobber.
Until Matty raids your house and then start selling it all at a half price. There'll be a second-hand grapple store going soon. There'll be no hyphen. It'll just be choptees.com or no e's at the end of the chop tees. He'll find a way to make his little profit. But yeah, that is all out there.
Car boot somewhere in Bootle. Yeah, I think that's where it'll be.
That's it, and yeah, we'd like to get rid of the old inventory from the old site as the new one is launched. So yeah, do get out the favour, as the chat is saying there. Cheaper than a Primark t-shirt to get one of the old school grapple ones, or again, maybe don't, and then me and Matty will just turn up to Garrett's and take the leftovers. Next grapple lads, I'll just be wearing 4 different t-shirts like Nigel in Last McGuinness when he was getting on the plane. Be a bit like that, but yeah, get it all. Chop tees and all our friends stuff as well, including the old post hats I used to wear. Get them over there now as well. I saw it on their store. So yeah, recommend it all. But on that note, we should move on, JP, to very quickly we'll go through some of the news and everything going on, which isn't a lot over the weekend before we get into some questions. And to be honest, the first thing we need to cover this week, JP, is once again it is somehow free agent season again, or we're just getting more news as far as comings and goings. Speaking of the footy today, and yeah, Miro has managed to land himself at the front and centre of the headlines over this last weekend, and has requested apparently his release from AEW. Obviously, we haven't seen any of Miro for a very long time at this point, but yeah, apparently he learned that Sean Rossap learned that Miro, formerly Rusev, has asked for his release from AEW. This coming from Fightful Select, and obviously, there's been various creative pitches apparently for Miro across the time, including the possibility of him appearing in the Casino Gauntlet at All In, and apparently he was pitching himself working with John Moxley. I think it was his own plan. That didn't come to fruition either, and yeah, it's brought a lot of conversation over the last weekend, JP, on Miro. Is it the company's fault? Is it Miro's fault? Should they let him go? Should they not let him go? Mostly blew my mind that he's somehow been in AEW for 4 fucking years, which is just mind-blowing at this point. Still only had about 30-odd matches. Similar hit rate to Roman Reigns. There's another shot for you. But what do you make of it? 4-year run. But it's believed that I think his contract still runs until the middle of 2026, or at least the start of 2026. So yeah, there is that too. But 1, should Tony Khan let him go, and 2, should we be be sad about it if Miro does leave AEW and move on to pastures new?
Well, I mean, should we be sad about the person who's held the TNT title for the longest reign of 140 days by all accounts, which was fucking news to me when I saw that on there. Should he go? In short, yes. Should he be released? Yeah, I think so, because it just hasn't worked. It's one of these things where there were points where you thought it could work when initially the Redeemer character happened. But if you go back to when he first came in, when he was like with his bleach blonde hair doing a Twitch streamer gimmick, and it was shit, frankly. And the high point of that was the sort of arcade brawl he had with him and Kip Sabian, who he was teaming with, and you were like just going, what a fucking waste of time. And he was it just completely like wasted at that stage and not doing anything with. Ultimately, there was a chance to do something, and it just never worked out. And I don't know whether or not, I remember there was one of the matches. It was like a tournament they were having, and he lost to Bryan Danielson. And there was a point of maybe at some stage they could have done that with him, but it appears to be, you asked who's to blame for it. There's blame from him in terms of what seems to be his attitude to it. He just doesn't seem like he wants to be in AEW. And do you really want people like that around your company who just don't want to be there? It's just not good. It's not good for morale to see someone like that. Between the injuries, and also, let's face it, the booking has been incredibly haphazard. It's been all over the place. And to say it's stop-start is like an absolute understatement as much. And maybe WWE is the natural fit for him. I mean, there's been points there's a whole big sliding doors effect of if he had stayed on and when Vince had gone, would they have actually done something more with it? Would they have actually gone, actually, we can capitalize on this guy? Because you always you thought that Vince was the guy who kind of saw him at a certain level and thought he can't really get above that. And you know, would he have been in a? I'm not saying he is like Gunter, but would he have been in that kind of a spot at this point? Or possibly. He's 38. I just don't see. He's going to be on a big wage as well. So if you can just get to the point of like, okay, you just release him from his contract, you save yourself a few quid. Now I know we'll talk about TV deal stuff and various other things that come up with that, but I just think it makes sense to let go at this point. Why keep him hanging around the place?
Yeah, for me, that's probably where I land, but I think maybe for different reasons. It's funny because I am I'm a fan of Loki. I'm a fan of I'm in general a fan of the old school 90s wrestler who would, fight for their spot on the card and, have a little bit more pride in, I suppose, their booking and their wins and losses and where it was all going. So to an extent, and that's to an extent, obviously, because when it starts to affect the product, that's when it becomes a problem. But, happy to be there doing whatever the promoter says wrestlers, like what it was like in WWE for so long, ironically, and how Miro was treated in WWE, ironically, isn't ideal either. But I think the blame lies with Miro in this one. Despite me thinking that, I just can't get past the fact with a pushover boss that I think we would describe, and a lot would describe Tony Khan as. And I don't even, that sounds really negative. I don't even mean it that negatively. He's a people person. He likes his wrestlers. He wants to be honest, he wants to be a good boss, at least from a person point of view. And you hear, those things from people all the time as, he gave me time off for this, he gave me time off for that. He listened to me when I said this, he listened to me when I said that. And I think Miro would describe Tony Khan as a pushover. So how have they not come to anything? I look at his cage match, 2023, beat Tony Nese, Anthony Henry, Nick Camarato, Powerhouse Hobbs, Action Andretti, Daniel Garcia, and Andrade, unbelievably, at World's End last year. That's his entire year. And that's all he did in that entire year, with the gap, obviously, in 2022 and the injury and all of that stuff as well. But the fact that, with a boss like Tony Khan, he couldn't, even if he disagreed with the creative, whether that creative was, you need to put over, a Hangman Page here, or you need to put up so-and-so here, or you need to go to ROH and do this, whatever the different, rumours that are out there about it. Even if he disagreed with all of it, I just can't get past the fact that he couldn't come to anything. He couldn't counter with anything that worked. He wasn't reasonable enough with Tony Khan, of all people, as a boss, that they couldn't come to some way to use him on TV and some way to come to a compromise. And doesn't absolve AEW entirely. There is Tony Khan's man management is something we've talked about plenty on this podcast, and there's often money left on the table, and I think there's a degree of money left on the table because we joke about his introduction to AEW. I think it's funny, Miro's got one of the worst runs in AEW history for me, which was as the Gamer, and one of the better ones, at least as far as a mid-card that goes, to a certain level, as the Redeemer. And there surely was more of that they could have done left on the table. So AEW deserves a little bit of criticism for that, but I think a lot of it just lies with him. Just sounds like me. Doesn't want to go to work. I mean, I empathise with that too, because I don't want to go to my office job tomorrow. I can't be asked. I'd rather sit at home and play games and do whatever he's been doing this entire time. But I think at some point the book's got to stop with him to an extent here. And I think I've got to question his motivation if he goes back to WWE. Maybe it'll be different, and he'll see that as the place, and he'll respect Triple H in ways he doesn't seem to respect AEW and Tony Khan. But I half expect him to land in fucking TNA, or dare I say it, MLW. He could be the replacement for Jacob Fatu at the top of the card there, if he can be asked. I just don't see it. He hasn't shown that motivation. Remember when we were all high on the fact that he's the type of guy who could go for a G1. He'd slot right in. And bear in mind, this was 4 years ago. That didn't happen, did it? And I'm sure he could have made those things happen if he wanted to push for it. So I don't see the motivation, to be honest, and I don't really see an upside for him going forwards. For someone who largely I find very entertaining, both in AEW and his peak run in WWE until it all went to shit.
Yeah, I can completely see your point, and I think if you were going to when it comes to the apportioning of blame, I mean, I think the problem is that Miro falls into the camp, and Ramin's kind of outlined it in the chat at the moment. There's that group of people who were released from WWE, who all of which you could make isolated cases for why they deserve a big push. And that included Andrade, it included Malachi Black, it included Keith Lee. Swerve Strickland was there, and he is the only one. I mean, even nowadays, you put bloody Mercedes Moné in there, and you almost got the feeling that when they were released, and it was like, okay, we're going to go here because Vince is around. And then when Vince was gone, as in like completely gone and wasn't going to be a part of the creative. It was like you just found them wishing they were back. And that was the problem, is that they were just working for a company where it's just like, oh, I wish I was over there. And it's that kind of potential, or the potential in our heads of what could be done with them, was never going to be realized. And so Andrade's gone. He's not particularly missed. At some point soon,
he's doing all right now. Other than that, he doesn't seem able to shake hands.
There's a ceiling, though, isn't there?
Yeah. He's doing. He had. Don't get me wrong. Like, he slotted literally right back into where he was at AEW, and it was kind of funny watching it. Going, well, there you go. Grass isn't always greener, is it, mate? He's had a bit of a better run lately with the matches on Smackdown, but it's not exactly a main event run either, is he? Seems happier, I suppose. But yeah, maybe Malachi Black will be happier as well if they sent him back too.
I think it would save it would save the money as well. But I also think as well with Miro, whether or not, and this might be me just doing a bit of pop psychology in this, but the fact that from a personal life perspective, he was in AEW when he's effectively announced that he's going to be getting divorced. I think there's just things where the place
he had the whole story, didn't he, with CJ Perry being his manager, and that was all a bit weird. That was around the Andrade feud, wasn't it? World's End.
And that's it. And I think it just brings really bad vibes for him. And I think it's just, he doesn't really want to be there. And it's like, okay, if you don't want to be there, then there is a place you can go to. And I think WWE would easily have him back. And I think for the amount that they're paying him, they're not going to get any semblance of value. And I just never see, like, I just hold on to that adage. There's just no point keeping people around in the company who really don't want to be there. You're better off just clearing the space, saving the money, and using it for people who are going to be there, and also be reasonable when it comes to the kind of creative side, because that's, I think your point on that is really the one to kind of go with, is that he didn't seem to be reasonable. It was just like there was no one he wanted to work with, and it didn't really matter at what level they were in there as well.
I think this happened with a lot of that group of guys, where it was just like the shock of being released from WWE, and AEW came along and offered them long-term contracts, and they jumped at it. Malachi Black's fucking lengthy contract, and this one, and obviously Andrade was in the same boat as well. And then the landscape of wrestling changed, and all of a sudden they kind of want to go the other way. But just tells you that wrestling isn't always built for. Miro's the type of wrestler who should. As much as I'm high on that Redeemer run, it's not like I necessarily think you could have done that for 4 years straight either. He's the type of short-term, burst type of guy, the way you book it. If he did bounce back and forth, that'd be great. If he had a couple of years running AEW and then went back to the fresher, I think that's probably arguably the best use of him, rather than this, belabored long-term run. But yeah.
I think as well is, and Andy brings the point up on here, saying about like being and it's a fair point, which is, being unreasonable at work just so you can end up being released. I think part of the problem is, and this is the thing that AEW do, you can't be signing people, I think, to 5-year deals, particularly if they've not been in the company before, because I think that often is part of the problem, because then come year 2, you can sense there's a bit of like, do I really want to be here? And you've got 3 years left on your contract, so you're not going to be going anywhere else.
To that point as well, like, as I see what Andy's saying, but I think enough time has passed now that Tony Khan can get away with, all right, now I'll release you. If it was a year ago, if it was 2 years ago, I think the look would have been worse. I think it's obviously we're still a while off the end of his contract, but we're close enough that you can kind of go, all right, we're going to cut bait now, but we've made our example, we've made our point. It's like the Ricky Starks thing, isn't it? Apparently Ricky Starks is still under AEW contract, but he's clearly been iced, this entire time. So there's a line there between, wanting to, make an example of people, but also the money suck and just the general bad vibes in your locker room if they are around, which causes a problem. And to that point, we might as well talk the other contract story at this point as well, which is on the other end of it. The Lucha Brothers, there's been different reports on whether they have in fact signed their deal with WWE. Sean Ross Sapp did say today that he's heard from people that the ink is not yet on the contract with them. Corey Hayes of PWN, I don't know what website's that, Pro Wrestling something, Nation, they've did announce that Lucha Brothers have signed a multi-year deal with AEW and will be headed straight to the main roster. I think that element of it isn't necessarily disputed by people and was consistent with the little things you're hearing coming out of their camp. But as to whether the contract is done or not, that's another thing. But yeah, looks like it's a done deal. And they're another one where as soon as that happened, as soon as it seemed like they might be moving on, AEW moved on from them, didn't use them at all it kind of created that wave of changes that we've seen in the trios division up to this point. And Tony Khan could have held Phoenix to his contract, with injuries and kept him for another year, I think was what was reported. Doesn't seem to be the case there, and it seems to have maybe there's a difference there with the way his interactions might have been with the Phoenix and the way Phoenix has been as an employee versus your Andrades and versus your Malachi Blacks. But apparently they haven't stood in the way, at least, and if the contract isn't signed, it's looking to be imminent.
Yeah, that's happening, and there's no surprise for that. I think it's just literally a case of when the contracts have been signed, and there'll be things to work out, whether it's merchandising thing. You know what I mean? There's always like the details within contracts and how many dates that they'd be working and stuff like that as well. I think for them, and we've said this before at the time, I think it's a good move for them. I think, is there a ceiling to them in WWE? Yeah, there is. And had they achieved everything they were likely to achieve in AEW, yeah, they'd had that big moment of winning the tag belts, but they were never going to get the kind of push as singles wrestlers that you and I could foresee them happening at various points. It just was never going to happen. And so it hits a point where you think, well, we've had Phoenix since the beginning. We've done good things with them. They've gone as far as they can go. Let them go over there, see if the grass is greener, because they also think of them as a tag team where if it doesn't work out in WWE, they could end up back in AEW. That wouldn't actually surprise me. Whereas someone like Miro, I don't ever see coming back in.
They did it with AAA, CMLL. They bounced around, haven't they?
They're Mexican wrestlers. I think it's just one of the things that you are kind of like taught to do, which is you jump around. Proper wrestlers. Who's the highest bidder? You go there. Oh, but there's politics. You can't go to CMLL. And they're just like, yeah, well, fuck that. I'm going to CMLL. And that's what they do. It's like I say, it's happening. It's just the specifics of them signing hasn't come into place. How you debut them, where you slot them in, because the problem is, if we'll talk about it a bit, main roster is in, because you'd want them pushed as a feature tag act. But the tag belts are the one titles that go across both shows, aren't they? And the problem, I think, with that then is that the tag belts themselves are kind of, as we'll talk about, indelibly linked to kind of top line programs, which there isn't a natural sort of place for them to kind of fit into the mix and go for those.
I could see them feuding with them. I don't think the matches would be good, but I could see them feuding with the Bloodline. I could see that being a thing. Them being like opponents to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, but it's almost like you need to get through the stuff involving the lads behind me for video viewers, for Cody and Roman. Like,
when they had an extra hour of Smackdown, mate, they're just going to add 5 more members to the Bloodline, aren't they? That's what, again, Zilla Fatu's getting a lot of time today. That's what he's hoping for. Just sign anybody who's got any slight relation, or might be Samoan. Samoa Joe should keep an eye out with that extra hour of Smackdown coming up. But I think that's where they land. I think, and again, I don't think it's guaranteed either. I think it's interesting, and it seems every indication is, because apparently the WWE have started moving on, putting merchandise for them together and stuff like that. They are going to use them as a tag team, it seems, because they've signed them as one too. I said it before, and I know a few have kind of repeated the point, but I feel like I was the originator of it. They are absolutely less. They're the definition of less than the sum of your parts, because I always thought Pentagon, if he hadn't got lazy and catchphrase heavy, which might be perfect for him in WWE, add more of an upside as at least an upper mid card kind of guy, or as like an interesting character. He got a little bit lazy, and the matches were still good when teaming with Phoenix, but as a character, couldn't be less interesting to me watching him do those same catchphrases over and over again. Again, possibly a benefit in WWE. And Phoenix, the ceiling was high for him for me as like a top line, masked luchador, likable babyface who can do genuinely spectacular things. But WWE have also had 3 or 4 or 5 next Rey Mysterios, and we always say they just circled round to the next Rey Mysterio is actually the original Rey Mysterio. We'll just send him to Mexico and get stem cell implants and bring him back. This could be the next Rey Mysterio, and it could go the same way as Kalisto and other names like that you can mention, and names that are on the roster right now. Dragon Lee, who don't necessarily get used to levels that they probably should be. So it's not a guarantee. But maybe the spike push, element of it comes in, and we got this tag team from AEW, and we're going to make them work, and then maybe, they merchandise it the right way that AEW didn't really take advantage of, and then maybe you get the singles runs later on, or maybe that as an act, is just one of you said of those things. It ran its course in AEW, then you get 3 years of catchphrases out in WWE, and then they're going to go back to Mexico and make even more money. That's also a possibility out of this as well, but can't harm to try, I suppose, is where I'll land at the end of it.
And I think for them as people, they don't want to go through their career not knowing what it was like to go there. And the real high benchmark for earning the big money, it's WWE. Like the massive, like multi-millions on, like, which weren't going to happen for them in AEW. They weren't ever going to sign those kind of deals. And I think it's worthwhile them doing it. Although, like, just like you say, I think it's hard to see how. I mean, they signed Mystico, for fuck's sakes, and it just didn't work at all.
He was the original next man Mysterio, I think. He was the first time they tried.
Yeah, and it didn't work, and it didn't work in the slightest. I mean, I think it's, they'll probably be putting against a feud with Ray and Dragon Lee. You could just see that happening. And it's also the cynical thing, and I don't think people ever really like to speak of it, but it's a game of niches when it comes to getting an audience, and the Hispanic audience when it comes to wrestling is one of those that is kind of like the most loyal. They're thinking in that global kind of way, aren't they? And so for them, signing the Lucha Brothers makes sense from a business perspective to get them in there as well, just so they're covering all bases, and so they've got like what they would think as of like authentic luchadors to put into the mix. And the kind of style you mentioned about the style of matches they have, for the way that WWE and WWE fans are conditioned, that kind of, it's the big spots, that it's the entrance, it's the big spots, it's the finish that they remember. They're kind of perfect, particularly Ray. Yeah, they're absolutely perfect for that. Who gives a shit if there's the odd kind of like clunky move that goes in between? And there's no Alex Abrahantes, which we'll actually find out, well, how much was he holding them back, to which I suspect a fuck of a lot.
Cool factor, 1,000,000%. In general, there's probably more factors, but I am glad to see them get away from them more. And while we're talking contract teasing, might as well go to the third one. Kevin Owens is teasing. Well, he's not teasing, but the news sites are teasing, and possibly going in the other direction. Apparently, his contract is due up once again. Feels like yesterday, JP, we were having this Kevin Owens conversation. Very different sets of circumstances here. Apparently, he's been approached about his new contract, but he hasn't signed a new deal as of yet, and apparently Fightful Select also reporting that those they spoke to in AEW said the company has long held a major interest in bringing Owens in when and if he's available, and they're expected to make him an offer if he reaches free agency, aka he's getting text in those Young Bucks group chat, I presume. Do you reckon they use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger? I don't know what WhatsApp time, guys. Maybe it's an Apple, they've got, I'm sure they're iPhone guys, aren't they? It'll be an iMessage group they've got going there, some kind of chat. But yeah, are we any more likely on him going the other way this time than we were 3 years ago? Like I almost feel bad. 3 years ago I was very harsh on Kevin Owens. I think I outright called him a mark on this podcast. You know what? Hands up, Kevin Owens turned out to be right. I think he was much better off staying in WWE. He had a nice little run for a fair amount of money. Him and his best mate got a nice little push during this period. Yeah, maybe the highs could have been higher if he'd have gone to AEW, but he'd also been going at a time when Punk was coming in, and he would have been probably swallowed up by all of that stuff. And it would be quite ironic if now in WWE 3 years later, Punk's in one place and he jogs the other way to be with his mates. Finally, but I don't know. The other thing is he's 3 years older as well, isn't he, than he was 3 years ago. It's a weird, but it's like back then. I don't think he makes a box office difference to AEW. I think AEW is and should be full, depending on what happens with this TV contract and how many more hours we get, I suppose. But stylistically, he does fit. The people who were there are the types of people you could see him working with well. You could see him latching onto that AEW audience. I could see him, fitting in well as maybe not a draw that makes a difference necessarily, but within the AEW ecosystem, maybe somebody who would sell a fair amount of t-shirts and do some okay quarter hours. I think he'd be a solid upper mid card act for AEW if they brought him in, possibly further. But I think it's all probably pie in the sky, isn't it? I think he'd be right to do a Randy and play both sides against each other. But at the end of the day, that he wants that Triple H pat on the stomach, doesn't he? That's what he wants, and that's what he'll probably get coming out of this.
this is
Steve match too. Sorry, yeah, because Elliot mentioned it. He main evented, quote unquote, at WrestleMania against Steve Austin, essentially, technically. Yeah,
he kind of main evented 2 Manias, because obviously he main evented the day one with Sammy against the Usos as well. I mean, I can't see him going anywhere. This feels like classic, and this will be the thing that he will have had the conversations with a Randy Orton who just goes, "You play both sides." Like, he knows how much money TKO have. I just think the issue is that perhaps TKO are probably trying to play a bit of hardball, and he's just like, no, okay, so we're going to have to drag this out for a bit, are we, for that to happen? Because the AEW be going to now is the very different prospect to the one from 3 years ago. Like, it's on a sort of like business, like certainly from an attendance perspective, like, and ratings, like a kind of a downturn. Do you want to come in and be associated with that? You've seen other people come in from WWE and it hasn't worked out. And I agreed stylistically, he's obviously a much better fit than, say, a Mercedes Moné. Also, I think he was like, I mean, the deal he ended up signing was pretty mammoth. I've got an idea of 3 million in my head, which sounds nuts. And I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have signed for something as big as that. But with bonuses and other things, that's where he's earning the kind of big money. And I don't know.
All the deals are coming in. Money's being thrown around again.
Yeah, they are. And I think he's in a good position to just sort of hold tight and do this. But will we end up with another, him sat in the front seat of his car saying how he's re-signed with them? Yeah, I think we'll get another one of those. It makes sense. And whether or not he's mates with the Bucks and everything else, I just don't think they can offer him what WWE can. And you have to say, and we were right. I mean, the skepticism was pretty well founded. However, he made it work. He made it work, even whether it was during the pandemic period by having some like batshit mental match. There was the match at Mania he had. I want to say, was that against Sami Zayn? And I was just like in an empty arena, and I was like, fucking
headbutted Vince, remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Like he is someone who's proven himself that you can slot him into top line feuds, whether it's as just a placeholder main eventer for whoever is champion at the time. Let's say Roman gets the belt back and you need to headline a bloody Backlash or whatever. You can put him into the mix. He ticks those boxes in WWE. Not many people do. And he can do that. He's proven he cuts his promos. His character is well and truly over, and he'll earn the biggest amount of money that he can do from WWE. So he's not going anywhere. He's just playing both sides against the middle. And AEW is handy like that, because what they at least do is they provide that form of leverage of, well, I can go somewhere else, which wasn't an option when he first signed with them. There wasn't any viable other options of places he could have gone to.
Absolutely. And yeah, what a difference 3 years makes. I feel like we made the exact opposite argument years ago, but Vince is gone, and the world has changed, I think. And yeah, again, the safer option probably does seem better. Maybe I'm just 3 years older, JP, and I'm like, you know what? He has got a mortgage and he has got kids, and he probably should, pay for those cars that he needs to sit in and cut these promos and do these interviews. Yeah, and again, he's the definition of a Triple H guy from that NXT era as well. So I just can't see him taking that risk at this point. But while we're on the subject, we'll talk a little bit of TV before we get to the questions. We're going to do a bit of a preview of Grand Slam, so we'll do Rampage and Collision very briefly in a second. But did you have any more notes on Smackdown outside of the Cody Roman in a stadium? I'll say I did really enjoy that. I genuinely did, and I know it's not my type of wrestling, but it is actually my type of film, JP, as in, I'm not even joking when I say you could place that in Fast and Furious 6 or 7 and replace Roman and Cody with Vin Diesel and The Rock, and you could absolutely get away with it. We're going to be doing one of these with Rock and Cody at some point. They're going to be doing these with Rock and Roman. I might be, I don't know, maybe I spend too much time with Matty these days, because I know a lot of our audience will have fucking hated this. I don't know what you made of it. Was it cinema, JP? There's the real question.
The first bit of my notes on this is, it's cinema, all right. It's just peak Michael Bay, is what it is. It's that. I
don't like Michael Bay. I like Fast and Furious, but I don't like Michael Bay.
But the way it was shot, it was all the gloss, the lens flare, the music kind of underneath, the very hammy lines in there as well. It was nonsense, because if you think about it, why are they meeting in a stadium? Like, why is it even that they're going to all of this trouble to do it? Other than Roman doesn't live
Georgia,
too far from Georgia.
Oh, fuck off.
And Cody lives in
you
Georgia.
better be messing me.
He
Jesus
does.
Christ. Look.
Jacksonville. Oh, there he is. He's fucking turned up at the right time.
I did it. I said his name too many times into the mirror, and here he appears.
You're right, people.
I literally haven't even been listening. I thought I'll just go on and surprise them. What he's talking
Lies.
about. I genuinely haven't.
Have a guess what we're talking
is
about.
Is it what's
mate?
behind you, JP? Is that what it is?
It is.
My ears must have been burning. They must have been burning.
Somebody sounded the cinema alarm, didn't they? That's what it is.
What's been said? Come on. What's been said?
Just started, mate. Just started, mate.
Just started.
You know.
Okay. Oh.
Was it cinema? Was the question I put to JP? You can answer it if you want.
It was
mate.
genuine cinema, though, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was actual cinema.
Yeah. Question for you: do you think I hated it, or JP hated it out of the two of us, or do you think we both loved it?
I mean, you can't hate it, but if anyone was gonna hate it, I'd say more you, Ben, on the slide. I don't know why. I just got like maybe a step too far for you. I don't know. JP, I reckon you just thought like it was that wacky and that wild that it was, which is why it worked. Though it couldn't have worked with anyone else, could it? Let's be honest. There's no other two wrestlers in the world this could have worked with. But it was.
I was just saying, Rock. You could slot him right into this.
You could like. But this was just lad. Because obviously you heard the rumors beforehand, and these leaks that are coming every Friday now of the day, like it's been filmed and that. And I thought, and then honestly, when I'm watching about 10 times, honestly, it's just fucking every time I pick something new up, it's just so fucking good.
It was an easy 10 minutes to. I mean, my overall point, mate, it was bollocks, but it was enjoyable bollocks. I put this down on how we felt when we watched Pain and Gain. It falls into that kind of camp of like I said, it's cinema, but it's Michael Bay would be all the like say Fast and Furious. It's got that sheen, it's got that aesthetic.
That's where it landed for me. I'll say, Matt, I did like it. I liked it. I thought it was for what it was. I don't want to see this on Collision. I don't want to see this on Gareth's very special, very important, precious show. But if WWE are going to be WWE, I think this is the most WWE thing you can do. And for the characters and the people, and for like I say, this type of stuff, I think I was lapping it up. I was laughing my head off watching it live. I enjoyed it.
Who was driving the other cars, mate? That was one of the first things.
All the different Samoans, mate. That's what it is.
I was like, well, why is he worrying about these 5?
Regens?
He appears to have at least 7 people who are willing to knock around with him.
He said last week, JP, he hasn't changed, Roman, has he? So this is he's still that character and still that guy. So until he actually does. Well, I will see, Ben. It's a slow one as always, Ben. This guy, like he's back to WrestleMania now. So, I've read anyway, and so I'm hoping that he's actually going to stick around till WrestleMania.
He's not going to, but anyway.
If we're doing stuff like this and P-tapes and videos, then hopefully
that's true. And it was a good way around. It was a way around that, wasn't it?
100%. Yeah.
Of taping it last week. But yeah, I did. I had a laugh with it. The dialogue was, hammy, but like the whole thing about, you're in my way. No, you're in my way.
In life.
Just like, I feel like it was a better line than that they could have come up with. But anyway, Paul Heyman apparently the brain child behind this Matty. Talking about Georgia history. I would. Without you even telling me that, I would. You could just see it, couldn't you? It is
Borash directing, absolutely.
Yeah.
Borash flying the drones. I think the first time I ever found out what a drone was watching TNA. I think he introduced them to
Matt Hardy stuff, weren't it?
Yeah.
What was it? Vanguard 1, weren't it? The drone. It's funny how shit sticks with it, isn't it? Fucking hell.
We're a world.
What have you got, Matty? Any other overall thoughts on it as a segment?
I've heard the people say like JP even there, I get it was bollocks in the way of like if you're putting a wrestling show on and this comes on, fair play. But I think it's all right. They could have done it in the ring, fair play. But as you say, these two characters, and a lot got said. He basically wants.
He takes things more seriously than Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. This is the thing. There's no Young Bucks winking and nod like, the camera's here. Even Matt Hardy, you say, like with these two, it's like, no, this is the world we're in. We're serious. But Cody Rhodes' character buys this. I'm the Georgia man. I'm from Atlanta. I live here. This is my family's town. Roman Reigns with the overly seriousness. I'm the real champion thing. You don't get characters who believe their bullshit as much as these two. So that's why it works for me.
And if you're thinking of so much of these like promo packages and stuff are all like, I think it might have been Waiting who said this before, that they're all there to be put together into a 3-4 minute long package to sell people on pay-per-views. This is the way you want to produce them, particularly in 2024 when you've got the kind of budget for it. You just can't do it all the time because otherwise then you completely kill it. But for these two, you imagine that when they do meet in one-on-one, this is how it's going to look. We're going to see another promo like this and another kind of confrontation. It was like, I mean, yeah, you can put plot holes and various other bits and bobs like into the mix. Particularly, I thought it was interesting. He was like, he was talking about his role at Georgia Tech when he played football there, and Cody's was basically, yeah, my dad used to run Techwood Studios, and I was just like, yeah, that's not the winning argument I think you think it is, mate. But yeah, I get that you live here. He mentioned about the Omni, which I'm pretty sure was demolished as well. But anyway,
Centre Stage as well. He mentioned, didn't he?
Yeah,
Cody
as well.
Yeah,
this
but
is
also,
the kind of
to say,
it's the sheen they need to show, though.
It's also, Ben, and I'm not going in here early, or maybe I am. It's another way as well of not getting the fans to boo Cody Rhodes because his delivery being serious. No, listen, if you're not saying this was a subtle, some of the stuff he was saying is heelish, Ben, about like, it's not your title and all that again. He was getting booed last week when he said it, and honestly,
so was Roman. That's what happens when babyfaces.
Roman was getting more cheers, Ben.
When babyfaces take pops at each, mate, you live through Austin Rock. When babyfaces take pops at each other, like that's just what happens.
But I think I don't know. It's just dead. I just
they need to protect Cody at all costs, don't they, mate? I'm told that he'll be lucky if he makes it to WrestleMania.
As champion, I meant as champion.
He'll end up in a shoot fight with fucking Jacob Fatu or something. I'll say this. I was going to save this, right? I was going to save this for our civil war when it comes to Hell in a Cell. I don't think they can put the world title back on Roman Reigns. I don't think they will.
At
least not for a long-term run. Because I just think the problem is, I'm annoyed you agree with me. Disagree with me for content. I honestly, I was thinking about it today. Like, I would do it if all things were equal, and it makes sense to give a babyface run. But one, you're never going to be able to do like a run the length they did last time, so it's always going to pale in comparison. You could get away with a short-term babyface title run, and I think there's an avenue to do that. But the problem is, with his contract and with how, he takes these breaks, you could use that for heat when he was a heel champion. Yeah. As a babyface, I don't think you talk about fans being on the edge. I don't think you get away with it. There wouldn't be that built-in excuse of I'm the tribal chief, I'm the big bad guy, I turn up when I want. As a babyface, they'd have to narrow it down to a little 3-month period where he is going to be around that entire time to do it. And I'm sure they won't be able to resist doing that if the opportunity aligned. But if things stay the same, I don't think they'll ever go back to it.
No, I don't think, and this should be the time to do it if you stay around to WrestleMania. But then you are taking it away from Cody, aren't you? The whole jokes aside, I think The Rock's going to be the one to beat Cody at the end of all this, though, Ben. Wow. I think The Rock's going to beat Cody at WrestleMania, and then if we get Roman and Rock the year after, does Rock can't have it for the year, though, can he? It's just all it's. But apparently that's going to be the match at Crown Jewel, isn't it? Is Roman and Cody? So I mean, it's so much you can do. Saturday night.
I think that'll be so. People have said Saturday night's main event possibly is the one in December to give that some juice. I could see that too. You could. If Rock was going to win the belt, it would be one of those January to WrestleMania periods like he did around the Punk Cena stuff where you could get away with it. But I think with Cody, I think getting to one of the Q&A questions later, I think there's too much left on the table. Like the big negative for Cody's run is they haven't done the big matches. And I think you've got Roman there, you've got Rock there, you've got potentially Gunther if something changes with the other belt, you've got Punk there.
Randy Orton.
Orton's one, Benno. Orton's going to happen.
Yeah. That could come out of it, though, couldn't it? He
don't need the belt for that, really. Yeah.
By Randy. I'd have more juice the turn if he turned them, but...
What about Netflix and a Netflix debut? That would be the other one if it wasn't Saturday night's main event. But when they do debut
as well, when he comes back for that run, you could get him and Cena in there, but
that'd be a nice little one-off. Yeah, I could see them doing that. That's annoying. That don't agree with me. Go on, tell me why.
No, I don't. I want Roman to be champ, but when you do as the fan, of course, but when you do realistically break it all down like you done then, when is he going to fit in? Unless it's like a 1 or 2 month thing, which you could do now, and then it gets to him Rock. But I just think Cody and Rock's nailed on for WrestleMania, which that's the divided opinion on it completely. That one.
Well, there we go. Great joining us. Great time, Matty. I assume you're sticking around for the Q&A. Is that why you're here?
I'm only here for a bit. I wanted a few Q&A questions, unless I'm jumping the schedule, if that's okay.
We'll bomb through. Nothing else to say on SmackDown, I don't think. Like
can I mention LA Knight? Can I mention that? What the fuck happened with that?
It's like that awkward moment, when somebody goes for like a cool guy handshake and someone goes for a normal handshake, and then another guy goes for a fist bump, and no one knows who's doing what, and you end up with a weird situation. It was like that. I think I don't know. Somebody was annoyed with somebody. It felt like.
No, but you know what happened after it as well. I mean, I know they probably got chemistry in the working together, Andrade and Carmelo. But that is scrap backstage, and Andrade looked fired up for that. It was one of the most realistic backstage fights I've seen on wrestling TV in ages. That he definitely had something up with him. But he's like that, isn't he?
That's not like him.
I know. That's what I mean.
I like that about tap into.
Oh yeah, I like that. Get into it. Of course, yeah, of course.
Well, on that note, glad you joined us, Matty, because we were just about to skip through the AEW TV at the weekend. More to talk Grand Slam this week. Isn't much to say about Rampage or Collision, and I don't want to say there's nothing to say about it for the next 15 minutes, so I'll just say Britt Baker's coming back. That's a thing, and Nigel cuts a very, very long promo at the end.
I did watch that promo. I've seen a lot of Nigel over the weekend there, lads.
I want to know which year is a Nigel, but we'll
and you know what? I'll save that for Tuesday. You might be surprised, lad. Seriously, I'm an honest man.
I've only got one main thought. I mean, I started watching Rampage, and I just started to give up because I just went, I'm just watching stuff happen because I'm up early at this time on a Saturday, and I'm just watching a few matches, and I think that's just like it. And Collision, it just feels like placeholder TV, and my hope is that when this TV deal goes through, that there's actually a point where they're going to have to put some more emphasis, probably because it's going to be on a different night to Saturday. And I think we were talking about that last week. And at that stage, like this week, I was just like looking at it, I was like, there's no big stars. The matches are very by the numbers, and the atmosphere is, to say the least, lackluster. It's not newsworthy. There's not really stuff about it. It's just like, we'll put a 10-man tag in there where Rush turned up in a T-shirt, and I think that was like the big kind of takeaway. And I thought I wanted to see him lose his shit backstage like Andrade did, because he does it in a slightly more violent way even. But
I'd say on the Nigel promo front, I still think, as much as I'm excited for the match on Wednesday and our podcast on Tuesday, it is still strangely set up, because it's almost like they're having to work backwards to justify the storyline. They're having Tony Schiavone now outright say that he thinks, well, what was Darby doing? Why didn't he take the title shot? And you were doing this thing with Brian absent and Nigel having to constantly call him out and play this. I don't know. I'd say player heel is probably like the criticism I'd have of this segment this week, where it started at the entranceway with Schiavone, and then it moved to the ring, and it just went on and on and on, and he's laying it on like he does in his commentary, where he was laying it on so thick, but as an almost borderline comedic, going to extremes for that entertainment value commentator. It worked. But it's just a bit of a weird dynamic when, again, as we're going to discuss on Tuesday, the real life story is that of a babyface, that he's coming back and he's going to wrestle again. And maybe that'll be baked in, and maybe you'll drop all of that hate for Brian. I saw
Definitely
Steph did say that maybe there'll be something post-match that brings us back to where we should be with the two characters. But it remains a weird way to get to a match. As a sicko, I'm excited to see, and I'm, for real life reasons, having watched some of that Nigel stuff over the last week or so, fucking hell, I shouldn't take any shots at Tony Khan this week, because what a fucking nice thing it is that this is happening, that Nigel's getting that moment and getting that match again with Brian on Wednesday. But again, it runs counter to the way they're telling the story, and like I say, Brian being off camera isn't helping, and it just all feels very rushed, maybe for real reason, maybe because this is the only date they think they can get it in.
Can I also say as well, after Saturday night and watching the boxing, maybe the idea that people had of Oasis playing into the ring is not the great win that we might think it is.
Well, don't worry about it, because fucking in the bushes is instrumental. So Bonehead and the other one can come and just play it. It'll be like, we've got Oasis, but not them two. Yeah. And it'll be like giving one of the old drummers or something come out. You can do it.
Did you see his performance before the Josh?
I saw people saying about it. It was bad, apparently.
It was bad. I just thought to myself, well, thank God I haven't spunked 500 quid on a ticket to go and see Oasis, because if this is the Liam Gallagher that turns up, we're fucked. And but he turns up, what for? Cigarette and Al Hilal, to quote the tweet that was going around earlier on today. yeah, it was. It wasn't as good as the fight anyway. That's all. I know we haven't mentioned it. That was a hell of a fight.
Oh, and SmackDown wasn't as good as Collision. It was still better show, Matty, this week. But anyway, moving on.
One quick mention / recommendation before we move on to the questions. I don't know if you've seen any of it, but Queen of Villains on Netflix. I've seen the first 2 episodes of it. It's quite good. I'm
It's a dramatization, isn't it?
Of Dump Matsumoto. Yeah. And basically all Japan women. So the cross girls. Chigusa Nagoyo, who you might remember from Gaia Girls, like being a hard ass. Well, in this, she's a complete fucking baby face in this. And the wrestling scenes are a little bit rough around the edges, but the way they shoot Kurikan and the way that they kind of like, you really do have a lot of empathy with the characters and stuff. It's a surprisingly easy watch. And there may be a podcast I'm appearing on in a couple of weeks' time where I'll be talking about the whole series in length. So I look forward to that, hopefully. So
I was going to say next week might just be Netflix week on Spotlight, because we'll have the Vince documentary to get into, and maybe we could cover some of that as well. And I've heard big praise of it out there as well. So yeah, could be something to that. Could be. But there we go. Outside of that, I don't think we have anything else to cover. The AEW pay-per-views are allegedly going to be on Max, but we can't do that on We Did Weekend show. 170 million. They're not going out of business, Matty, as you and your mates have been telling everybody.
Don't throw me in with all that lot, Benno. You know, it was always going to get signed on, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So fair play to them. They're still producing content. That's what they're there for.
Top 3 in cable.
MC Arena matches every week. That should be the new gimmick of the promotion. Do you know what I mean? So, you know.
We'll see. In 3 years, I hope that doesn't become true. But,
mate, we went beyond this week.
Show if you want to hear it.
I'm sure on Collision and Rampage, you could hear lads taking a piss in the bush outside the arena, let alone the toilets in the arena. It felt that empty.
No, but you know what? That 6-man was great though. Like I watched it. It was fucking great. It was always going to be, wasn't it? So yeah. And Moxley, if you just covered it, Moxley's been fucking
incredible.
It's like a new. It's like a completely new. Obviously, he's a new character. Like a new guy. He's just so reinvigorated. It's great to see. He's fucking.
It's my favorite thing in wrestling right now. Like they should give more segments to him. It's like Austin in the Attitude Era, and he gets 4 segments on each Dynamite.
Yeah,
and he should have 5. I don't care. Like just throw him out there. He can beat up Alex Abrahantes again. He can just stand in the background while
just a shame he's got to wrestle, Benno. that's my shame with it. I like him in these segments though. He's been really fucking good.
It's the best presentation of Mox.
100%.
We were raving about that on Weekend Show, and we talked a bit about the AEW possible TV deal over there, as well as obviously the Vince McMahon documentary, which we'll be getting into more next week as well, and the Ann Callis, Janelle Grant stuff as well, which definitely deserved its time. I'm sure we'll be focusing on that story coming into Spotlight next week, JP. But yeah, on that note, should we get into some of the questions and talk some of what our Discord have given us? I'll now that Matty's here, it's thrown me over a little bit. So
I was going to say, I was doing it for the listeners, Benno, not yourself. I was doing this for the listeners.
I need to get a T-shirt printed, don't I? Want to the Nigel Brian Fears Nigel T-shirt.
I've seen it all. Don't get me
Matty
wrong.
Fears Benno. We can sell a Benno Fears Matty one, mate. We can make some money,
More people will buy that one.
Plus, hashtag American Coward kind of works for both of us. We can both throw on each other.
Good T-shirt idea of superimposing your faces onto the ring spot. And having me and
Nigel and Brian me on the outside, yeah.
That's it, and having me and Gareth as like the ring sign covering our mouths.
That's your other job on Unified, Matty, because you're the Unified correspondent. How many of us you can spot? If you get me, Jamesy, and Joe, then you win a prize.
I've seen you. I wasn't looking out for the other lad, so I'll have to
you'll see Joe.
That spot. Okay.
You probably won't see Jamesy. I think he was a bit further back. But anywho, let's get into the questions, and we've got a corker to kick us off. Almost like this was planned, as all the way from Malta, Mig Lannister on the Discord asks, what's more likely to happen? And we are, by the way, still the #1 wrestling podcast in Malta. We are ahead of
Chael Sonnen,
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash,
who's apparently a wrestling podcast, like legitimately #1. Don't know why. Nowhere else for #1. Not even close, to be honest. But in Malta, I'll give him credit.
I'll happily do a live show in Malta. I'd fucking kill for that. That'd be awesome.
Might sell 2 tickets, but it's enough to get us at the top of the charts. He asks, Punk back in AEW or Matty to concede Cody's better than Roman? What's more likely to happen out of
I mean, Punk going to AEW, could answer that straight away. That'll never, ever happen out of my mouth. I'll never say them words.
I could see it. He's such a company guy, Cody, that I could see, him taking over.
I don't hate Cody, that's the thing. It's just that
Yes,
he's up against... No, I don't. It's just that he's
not Roman.
Up against Roman at the minute, and then whoever's in the way, JP, just gets
Paper
it.
champion, I was told.
Maybe I was a bit harsh with that one, Paper champion, because he has done well. No, he has done well. He has done well.
In the face of being booked against scrubs in main events. No, like that AJ Styles who carried him, who can't get a booking.
That was in-ring, Benno. Don't get it twisted here. That's in-ring. He needs to be carried. Yeah. As a champion, you can't deny it.
He carried Solo Sikoa to a 4.5-star match.
They both carried each other. They need the bells and whistles and the gimmicks, the cage matches. This is all just for Cody as well.
It's got nothing to do with Solo, the referee had more to do with it than fucking Solo Sikoa. The cage, I'd give more credit. I will go with, probably actually Punk back to AEW. But both are extremely unlikely, is my take. Williams Red 5 asks, if AEW were to announce a Hall of Fame, who would the first 4 inductees be, including current and former personalities? I feel like, would your opening class not have to be Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody, just for like,
the Bucks?
It's a good little gimmick, isn't it? And you shock everyone by going and Cody, but is it realistic? I don't know.
Who's the originals? Like Darby Allin or who else?
I think Jericho would end
Jack
up
Perry.
in there.
Jericho, yeah. Jericho and Bryan. I think
MJF, surely got to be MJF. And people don't, but he's been an original and he's been a big star, hasn't he?
If you replace Cody with MJF as like the original, like someone they created from scratch, effectively into being like a big star, and Jericho as they needed that sign of credibility of someone who had main evented like big shows for WWE, and at that point in time could still go in theory. I think you're looking at them two, the Bucks and Kenny.
Moxley,
and whether you include the Bucks as one act, I don't really know. But
I could see them doing like as a first class the Elite, and you could replace Cody with Hangman if you wanted to, and then as a second class, then it'd be Moxley, Jericho, Bryan, and maybe like MJF. Like they're my candidates, really. I think that'd be a good.
Britt Baker,
two classes there. Who?
Britt Baker. She's been original since day one, hasn't she? Pushed the most.
Yeah, they might want to.
Tony Storm.
It's only Britt. Britt's your only candidate, I think. You're talking early years AEW, as far as the women's division goes. Yeah, you could do that.
Shivani,
Mox, Chris Elliott says
as well.
Shivani will get in. At some point.
Excalibur, all the usuals.
Shivani definitely. You've got a link to the past and WCW and wrestling on TBS and TNT. So.
Ryan M37 asks a couple of weeks. Oh no, he said he forgot his question. I forgot about that. A couple of weeks ago, he thought of a question, and now it's he's forgot what it was. Tune in, folks. Later on, we'll see if we can come back round to him and he asks us one. We've got a young lad here, good-looking lad with a nice T-shirt. Benno, I think his name is. Did Sean and Brett ever have a good match? Discuss. I think we already got it at the top of the show. As the Bretro correspondent, glad you're here, Matty. My answer is no, but I'm using good in the sense of like there's a degree of sarcasm to that. It's like, did William Regal ever have a good match? I think the real conversation is, did they ever have a great match? And the answer is no. Did Brett and Sean ever have a great match? I think the answer is no. But as far as good goes, a few people push back on me with Survivor Series 92, which, to be honest, I don't have a huge recollection of, so maybe I need to go back and watch that. Don't remember it being better than just about, than a 3.5 good match. Sean and Brett is the one people will say from Survivor Series 97.
I like Montreal, I think it's a good match.
And you talked about it, didn't you, on that podcast as well?
It's realistic.
That's probably their best match, actually, that I can think of. Maybe I'm not remembering the 92 matches as well as I should. But they don't have a great match together. It's like the people who I describe you as, Matty, your Fed fans with Roman Reigns avatars on Twitter. It's like they were given like a school book of things, just shit you're supposed to say. And the first chapter is Iron Man match good, Brett Sean greatest rivalry of all time. But if you live through it, it's just not true, is it? It's just not
it's
true.
The real rivalry. That's the biggest thing with them, isn't it? It's like on telly. Obviously, the segments and all that were great in '97, but yet they didn't really have that Obviously, it's iconic Montreal for what it was, of course. But I know what you're saying. There's not that one true great actual classic
It'd be a boss
match.
mixtape if the matches existed, wouldn't it? Oh, we do Shawn
Yeah.
versus Brett and do a whole mixtape. You actually can't, which is kind of shocking.
The original ladder match that's like, obviously, once again, to test the run, we done that on Brett's show, and that is a good match considering like it's the first ever ladder match and it's a test run. But yeah, once again, it's not like a most memorable encounter, is it? So it's it's an interesting one that for the lads.
Yeah.
Sean asks us another Matty Bake question. It's almost like we were trying to get you out of your bed, Matt. Why was WCW 2000 best than Summer 99? WCW refer to at Matty.
I think it was. I prefer it, of course, but I mean that 99 run needs to be like studied. I'd want to go back and watch it because I've got, obviously we talked about on the Bam Bam mixtape, the Jersey Triad. So there's obviously all right stuff there, but it's that main event feud with like Macho Man and Nash, where like the sewage, he pours the sewage. Remember the contortionist in like the duffel bag and stuff. It's like it's so bad. Some of the stuff on there that gets forgotten about. Like it's really bad.
Speaking of living through it, as much as we ironically, and I would say there's a degree of irony in it, JP, love Jeff Jarrett. Like when you live through it in real time, that TNA run, as I think I saw Sean Ross Sapp point that out. Like it was no fun those 4 years when he was just beating everybody and squashing people who should have been, your Monty Browns and your AJs who should have been the top guy at that point. And I almost think the same about WCW 2000. I hear the words WCW 2000s and I think of the run where it felt like Jeff Jarrett and Sid were exchanging the belt on a near weekly basis. When I think it was Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan, it was, yeah, it was.
But it wasn't. It was his worst run, and it was just paint by numbers, content for content's sake. We've got a Nitro this week. We've got to put something on. And Jeff and Sid were when it was the blandest of bland, white bread, bland wrestling. Dustin Rhodes is a babyface. Just at that point, washed up. Or just terrible. Terry Funk on telly with a fucking chicken, all of that stuff.
This is what I'm saying, though, right? And I know, like, I'm not like, well, we'll defend Russo too. That everyone just associates like the last 2 years with Russo. It's not. And don't get me wrong, he's had horrific stuff, and I get people don't like him. But what you've reeled off there and some of the 99 stuff, he had nothing to do with all that. And that's what I think my main thing is. He just weren't associated with the shit like the chicken, as you say, that contortionist angle, the sewage truck. Like, it's just, there's some of the worst stuff, generally, that Russo's ever put on. Some of that stuff's way worse.
But 99 had, some good cruiserweight stuff, Blitzkrieg and all that. We talked about the Bam Bam stuff, the tag teams, Benoit, Malenko, West Texas Rednecks, little tag division that kind of appeared for a little while. Didn't last very long. Raven and Perry Saturn, all of that stuff. You had a bit of good there, at least.
Am I right in thinking, though, is what the part of the problem with, let's say, 99 compared to 2000 is 99 has still got the same headliners that they pretty much had throughout that boom, and we were so thoroughly sick of them.
Still decent crowd shape in 99, to be fair. Like, that decline, but still good houses. Like,
but at least, and this isn't a defense of WCW 2000, but at least they were like kind of in a position where they were forced to try new people and try new things. And there's always that part of me that at least admires the attempt of that. Whereas anytime you look at like pay-per-views from 99, it's the same lads doing the same shtick. And it's just also the realization that they're only going to put in, a limited amount of effort. I know there's a question about DOSers, and you could just go for pretty much the top line of WCW in 99 for it, because it's just a fucking waste of time.
Like Hogan coming back as the red and yellow in 99 and stuff. Bad. Like really, really bad. So bad. Oh.
Got another cracking question here from another ringer. AskGRAPPL Gareth as a question.
Who's he?
As seen on Twitter, mate. He's a big star on Twitter this weekend. Is it bad audio to just laugh at progress for 15 minutes for running a show called History is Written by the Victors with less than 200 chairs despite giving away free tickets? #AskGRAPPL. I don't think they deserve the 15 minutes at this point. JP.
That's it.
But yeah, they put those pay-per-views out for free, haven't they? And for some reason their attendance has been dwindling. Good things happen about people, I would say.
They feel so irrelevant. Like at this stage, I know that was it the next show they're doing Kenta versus Cara Noir, and I can't think of anything worse. Can't think of anything that I would sooner just not be at than that, because I couldn't give a shit about Cara Noir, and Kenta in 2024 is just it's like fucking flush.
Doesn't that like sum up like how little they know the pieces they're working with? Like Kenta is like should be a nostalgia act, really, shouldn't he? Like at this point in his career, but he's just inactive. It's because of the Defy links and all of that. But I don't know. I've heard things about the booking being better, in recent vintage based on who's doing that booking. So there is at least that. But like the business side of it's comical. You can't help but jump in and laugh at it when they're selling the front row tickets for what they're charging for them, and then on the other hand, they're giving away these pay-per-views for free and they're giving away tickets, and they still are doing attendances at the ballroom that are just genuinely embarrassing at this point. Like we're the old men at this point, JP. We were there when it was a very different place, for good and for bad. But for as far as attendance goes, like that stuff wouldn't happen, would it, back then?
No, God, no. I mean, they would be selling 750 tickets in under in about 6 to 7 minutes, which is insane compared to where they are now. It feels like it's giving it away. And even on a weekend like this, where you're thinking there is bugger all wrestling going on, there's the possibility of watching that. It's like, nope, I sooner wouldn't, because but also when we do previews of the cards, there's too much stuff on there, which I know you fall into the toxic positivity trap of, well, is it too much stuff? Isn't that great? You go, no. Like, if you order a meal and somebody turns up with 4 meals, you're just going to end up overly stuffed, aren't you? It's just like, it's a waste of fucking time. So, yeah.
They've never understood what they bought, and they've never, they're never getting that return on investment, and they're going to, out of stubbornness, continue to run it into the ground, and there's going to be a small group of people who will still go to their shows and watch their free live streams, but that group of people just looks, from a distance, to be ever smaller and smaller, and that's the degree of time they deserve. I'm not talking about them in any more detail. That's what they get.
Yeah.
But there we go. Thank you for the question, GRAPPL Gareth, whoever you are.
I remember him now.
I think he used to be a podcaster, didn't he? And then he retired. I think that's what I heard about that bloke.
Mick Foley a podcast in that with his retirement.
That's what I heard as well. Yeah, let me load up the next one. So yeah, after that we have GRAPPL Gareth, and then we have our Nate Thomas. Might be a relative, breaking kayfabe here. Will Dominic win a world title before Solo?
Well, I did say Dominic will win a world title in his career, which I think you two mightn't have agreed with me, or maybe you, Benno, wouldn't have agreed. I think he will win one, and probably will win one before Solo Sikoa,
yeah, because I think as much, even you have to accept at this point, Matty, they have accepted Jacob as the star. Like, but
I was going to jump. But I hate to say that. You're putting like words in my. You're being mean.
No, I know you like Jacob. You liked him in MLW.
Yeah, love Jacob Fatu. He is obviously gonna be like around WrestleMania season, the one that they're all gonna, and they've been like hinting at that with Cody facing off with them. Obviously, Roman
seems to want to get him over.
Yeah. Solo's character, and probably real life now, he's a pretender, isn't he? So that's the whole thing behind it. Well, that's what the character is, isn't it? That's what it
real life is, as you say.
But I just don't think. I never ever said he would be a world champion. I just think he got a bit too much criticism. I don't think he's been that bad the way people go on, but he hasn't been amazing. But I think he's delivered. And
it's funny.
He's almost over heels, isn't he, on the roster? So whether you want to say that or not, he is.
There are parallels there in that, like, Dominic is kind of that same thing, isn't it? He was so bad they made it his gimmick, and then somehow Dominic's come out the other end, and that I do actually find him entertaining for the act that he is and the place he is on the card. And he is one who I would by definition say should never be world champion. But could I see him getting a slip on a banana, skin kind of win that ends up lasting 30 seconds until someone comes in and cashes in? That type of creative, maybe not exactly that, but something like that. I could see it happening before Solo, yeah.
But it wouldn't be the big belt. It wouldn't be the Cody Roman belt. No. It would be the Gunter belt, and it would be in something like, say, Elimination Chamber. Could he win that in there where he just bullshits his way, like, say, the slip on the banana peel? Yeah, I could see that happening. Not for a while, but we could get to you could see them getting to that point, because as a character, he kind of knows who he is, and or he's getting to that place of knowing who he is. So I could see that happening, as opposed to Solo Sikoa, where it just doesn't ever feel like it's going to work. Not to the level that they thought it could do.
I think, I think that's probably fair to say. And yeah, definitely need to get you and Thomas Nate in a room, Matty. I feel like you would get on. Anyway, moving on. Paul asks if you could only watch wrestling from 1 year, matches, promos, angles from any company around at the time, which year would you choose?
Except for 97, excluding 97.
Yeah, he does say he knows what my answer would be. I don't know if that's true though. Would my answer be 97, or would my answer be as Snowboy has found it here? The year 2005. If you're talking matches, if you're talking that type of era, Benno, I'd probably go 2005 because I get to relive ROH. TNA was good. WWE wasn't great, but you know, I got some entertainment value out of WWE in 2005. I could make an argument for myself with 2005. Maybe as a reserve one, but yeah, saying that, maybe the real answer is 97.
That's a tough one. That is a really, it's a great question. Like, it really is. My default is always 2000 though, like, because it's just
2000 would be a good one too.
Yeah. ECW still knocking about as well, isn't it? And I enjoyed it in 2000. So yeah, I'd just go 2000 probably.
I'd go probably if we're talking about a company as well that I'd want to see, like, in a particular year, I'd say New Japan in 2016. Where it felt like it was, and finishing off like kind of at the Dome in 2017, so the match against Okada Omega 1, finishing off with that, because it just felt like it was just when everyone felt hot and the product felt hot, and it was seeping into how kind of hot things were over in the UK as well, because we were getting to see these guys semi-regularly. But it felt like every big show in New Japan was just much watch stuff, and you had undercards that were worth your time. That had, like, it wasn't just filler tag matches a lot. Maybe I'm remembering that with a sense of nostalgia, but
I was going to say, if you have to watch the non-canon shows, the 6-man tag shows, it depends if you have to watch every show they put out. It might be the question, you know.
Yeah, that might kill me off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's a good year. And obviously, yeah, there's NXT coming up if you chose that year as well.
Yeah.
That could be a strong one. Chris Elliott and some Brit Res, but maybe we don't want to revisit that. But yeah, I'll say 2005. Chris Elliott, who would you say is the biggest unsung hero in the history of wrestling? #AskGRAPPL.
I'd have thought about this.
Feels like,
and I'm going to say,
JP, yeah.
Because of the influences, I'm going to say Eddie Gilbert. And I think Matty
definitely up there, JP, for sure. He was like the Heyman before Heyman, wasn't he? With the angles and creativity and stuff. 100%.
Without him, you don't get Heyman, you don't get ECW, which means you don't get the Attitude Era, and you don't get wrestling kind of like growing up. And I think that's what Eddie Gilbert got more than others. And it wasn't, and he himself was never the biggest of stars. I mean, in a very regionalized way, he was a star, but still to a very low level degree. But the amount of influence that he had around, like, he doesn't get the kind of credit that he ever will do.
100%. I've got like sets on in JP. I need to go back and watch them again. Like, just that 89 runners in WWE when he's a baby face. Like, what's going on? Like, he's a wrestler that should never be a fucking face ever. Though. It's wild times. I think that was Flair political winner at the time, and maybe I'll have to do some research into that. Yeah.
This is the type of question as well where you want to almost say like a Pat Patterson, but like, he's sung, and he gets some heroes who get sung, don't they? Similar to like what maybe, and again, because of the week we're on, my personal answer might have been a Gabe Sapolsky for the change in the wrestling landscape as a result of that era. But actually, the unsung hero in that locker room was Kerry Silkin, who was paying for it all. Like, that man lost a lot of money for that era to exist and for things to end up how they did for a lot of those wrestlers. So I'd probably go with him. Vince Russo, is that your official answer, Matt? Are you going with that?
He's not unsung, is he, Ben? Let's be honest, he's probably not
by you, yeah.
Despised.
he's not sung by anyone else.
He's not sung.
I mean, I'll always give him that credit of, like, I know people like to dismiss what he done in WWF, but he was one of the most, like, brains behind that, didn't he? And got the change in there. He did. Let's be honest, didn't he? And he really did, though. And then
made it relevant and cool, and
considering we were stuck in, I don't want to sound like him now, but we're stuck in that TL Hopper, the Goon. Like, it was embarrassing, wasn't it? Like, as like the cliff of
we also mentioned him earlier on, but I think another unsung hero is Jerry Borash. If you think of all the roles he
point.
had fulfilling in TNA,
Oh, he's really
plus
good in TNA.
his production, the way he understood wrestling production and the way that he was able to kind of like have really good ideas and the way he fitted seamlessly into the WWE system, and now is like finally doing stuff clearly on a main roster level. And he was always very good, and he always came across like he was incredibly likable and like understood wrestling in a way that lots of other people didn't.
Lindsay asks, name 5 good Sammy Guevara matches. No.
5. Fucking hell. That ladder match with Cody, just that spot, that was great, that spot.
And the Ricochet match of the week was good. He just, kind of ate Ricochet up, didn't he? Fuck.
The first Stadium Stampede, it probably doesn't really count, but he stood out in that.
Him and Darby, was it
course.
the 6:30 to the table, to the outside? Was that him and Darby? Was that a pay-per-view? That was insane Spotlight.
Feels like a Dynamite, that, but yeah.
Sure, it was pay-per-view, that one.
I think he's trolling us anyway. But yeah. 5 memorable Sammy Guevara matches. You just saw 3 men not be able to do it. Yeah. He has had, Lindsay said here in the chat, he has had good matches.
Yeah.
But maybe... But is he not like the definition of that? You'll always say it, Matty, everyone's good now, and you'll get shouted down by crew for saying it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like,
but he is the definition of it.
Mechanically,
yeah.
He's kind of that. Yeah.
There's just dime a dozen, aren't they, them guys? That's why like people need to stand out.
Like Ricochet's struggling with.
This is it.
And dressing everywhere anyway.
This is it. Dime a dozen, like they genuinely are.
There we go. Okay, from there. Go on, I'll ask it because you're here, Matty. I was going to skip some of the non-wrestling questions, but UNX top 5 roasting items. Give me one.
Can we just do 5 meats or is that what we're doing? I had a roast today, first time me and Steph have been together on a Sunday having a roast, and we usually go chicken, but we done a pork joint, and it was lovely. It was absolutely lovely.
Crackling.
No, JP, there wasn't. It was no crackling. I'm not into. I don't really like that. Don't really like it. But we kept it basic. We just had pork joints, stuffing, roasties, and marifat peas tonight, and it was fucking lovely. Really enjoyed it.
Not mushy peas, no.
Mushy peas on a roast, Ben. No,
not on a roast.
You're open Pandora's box here. That's strictly like fish chips and mushy peas. That one.
Yeah, I think I'd go with it, but it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be like
naughty. That
it's just because you mentioned peas more than anything. I'd say for me, okay, the potatoes are number 1. Gravy and mint sauce would be a number 2 and a number 3. As long as I've got potatoes and I've got gravy and I've got a little bit of mint sauce, and then any meat is a number 4. Like I'm not really too fussed. Beef would probably work, and then the 5th. More of them. Veg. Broadly veg. I don't know.
Do you put your mint in your gravy though, lads? That's the one, and I've said this before. You've got to put the mint in the gravy and mix it. The way, JP, try it, mate. You will never go back. I'm telling you. I love me mint, don't get me wrong on its own. But mixed into the gravy works a wonder, mate. It does.
Don's mention of cauliflower cheese there is a really interesting one to throw.
Bold shout that, Don.
I'd be vaguely the same. Like, there has to be a meat
whenever it
on
gets added to my roast.
That's Toby Carvery special in it, Benno.
I get so angry when that happens.
We'd all agree Yorkshire puddings, generally. Gravy.
Not necessary, I think.
Give or take the Yorkies, lad. Not a must.
If you're going to leave something out, I'd be all right with them being left out.
Take up too much space on the plate, JP.
You can fill them though, Matty. If you're doing a carvery, you can use the middle to have more potatoes or possibly more veg.
I mean, what you were on about with broccoli bake? I mean, what type of posh roast gaff do you go to? You and that.
I'm getting grief for the mint sauce. Shout here as well.
I prefer horseradish sauce with beef as opposed to that. I don't know. You're not a fan of that at all.
Are you strict?
Caramelized onion.
Are you strict to like the meat's got to go with the sauce? I know Liam's big on that, like applesauce with is it pork? Then you've got to have like mint with lamb. Are you a stickler for that? Would you say?
I'm not a stickler, but I just as I've grown older over time, I found myself liking horseradish and mustard as just like my condiments of choice when it comes to like a roast as well. So yeah, I'd having those, and the one veg would be carrots. I love a carrot, and I love you can do a nice caramelized carrot that'd be there. And if I'm having green veg on it, it'd be broccoli.
Green beans, even picking over people. You went with the E. turkey's the one. If I had to pick a meat, though, I know people say it's dry turkey, but I love it. It's my favourite.
It's the least interesting part of the roast. Yeah. I like some meat, but I think because of this is the thing, Matty, because of dousing in gravy and mint sauce, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like it really could.
Can I just add to Chris's point? Ketchup on a roast is a criminal offence.
Yeah, whoa. I mean, JP, the only time it's acceptable is on a bubble and squeak fry up. That's where it's all right. But on a normal roast, if you're having anything like brown sauce or ketchup, mate, that's just it's wrong on all sorts of levels.
Wrong.
Chat's going wild, yeah. It's the most.
I was going to say Gareth. What's Gareth having on his roast? Nut roast or a bit of it?
Nut roast is good. Yeah, depending on where you go. Like I say,
it's no meat though, is it, mate?
No, it's nowhere near.
When you go to a Toby, I'm pretty sure you can get a meatless roast, like a veggie one, and it's like £7 or something like that, and then you can keep going because that's the stuff you can keep going back and getting more of. So it's basically all you can eat, just as many potatoes and veggies. And that's the best stuff, to be honest. So yeah, I'm all right with it. It works.
Cabbage is underrated, JP, as well. I do like cabbage. I do like it.
I'm more of a red cabbage man.
Yeah. Pickled cabbage.
Yeah.
Bosh,
do like red cabbage.
Fuck the wrestling. Let's just talk about stuff like this.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Simon says nothing less than a man who thinks a battered sausage is part of a Chinese. And for more content like that, Grapple pre-show this week will be the Benno pre-show. I didn't plug that properly at the top of the show. Yeah, before we get into the Nigel stuff. By pre-show, mate. What do you think? If you had Scran of the week, Gareth had Bath of the week, what should my of the week be? What would mine be, Matty?
Drink family. You be with the drinks, Benno. You sort of like that.
I'd want to know who your neighbour of the week is. We haven't heard from them in a while.
Not the fucking kids who keep knocking on my window. They're doing me head in. Getting harassed by young teenage girls, unfortunately.
Just get a pellet gun. That'll keep them away.
Not you can do though, is there? It's not like I can even I can't threaten them. I can't do anything. I can just shake my fist like the angry old man, and they're flat at the end of the road. I'll come up with something weird item in the fridge of the week. Richard Benson pre-show. Ewan says it will be American item of the week.
Yeah, sort of American Ben. It's got to be.
I've got some things planned, Matty. I've got some things.
Can't wait.
There you go. That'll be live before the Nigel show on Tuesday on Grapple Patreon. But go on then. Wrestling. Danny asks, did wrestling peak with the first 2 seasons of Lucha Underground? See, only barely wrestling. I'd say no, but I very much enjoyed the first. That period, I really look back on fondly. I was listening. I can't remember who I was listening to talking about it, but like, you know, the way now we've got like WWE is strong, AEW is strong. There's a lot of wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling on TV, and there's going to be even more. That's my question to you, Matty. Are you going to be watching the third hour of Smackdown? I dare say you will not be. But there's a lot of wrestling on TV. But I've got a real soft spot for that little period where it felt like every night of the week there was like a smaller show on. Like there was Lucha Underground was on. Was it Tuesdays or Wednesdays?
Yeah.
You had ROH TV night. Impact was pretty strong. Like, and then obviously there's the WWE stuff on the side of it. New Japan's like highlight show on was it Access back then?
Access.
I remember what it was. Yeah.
Was this before Power as well?
I favouted Access on the dodgy box. New Japan was on in the afternoon from like 2018.
Yeah.
Wild.
But it was a
I was
fun
going to
little
say NWA, the good version of
Power,
NWA.
JP, the first 2 seasons.
That was a bit later.
Good,
but yeah, I do get what you mean. But I love that first couple. We threatening constantly. By, let's say, Matty, you're the scheduler, allegedly. By February, by the next Steelers choice, we will do a Lucha Underground show. I want that as a guarantee at some point, and we'll go through season 1. Like, but that 2014, 2015 period, a lot of fun.
And what I've watched, I fucking love. Obviously, love the Vampiro and Pentagon as a casket match. Is that right? I mean, that was like, or a death match, whatever they had. That was great. Remember Vampiro talking about it on Steve Austin's podcast, and Austin was fucking loving it. Remember that? Like, so obviously the
season 1 is a deep cut.
Swerve and AR Fox glass match and all that. So stuff I've seen and the gifts and that just looks insane.
It should have been. It's probably more influential than it'll ever be properly given credit for. Because I think it's soured with the idea of them signing guys to deals for such excessive.
I say that's how they're influential. Tony Khan had him at all my beer.
They were forced.
Thank you, Simon. Sorry, thank you, Simon. Thank you. Do me job there, Benno.
But the way it was produced was.
Oh no, we told you to send that message. You fucking dickhead. You don't see the behind the scenes, Simon. You can have it though. Go on. But yeah, Lucha Underground definitely one we'll do at some point. best luchador mask designs.
Ooh.
Who's got your favourite mask? Speaking of, it's a good little follow-up. Danny threw Psychosis in the Discord. I'm tempted to not disagree. But then is Lager better? I guess it's not luchador, so...
I was going to say, well, Ultimo Dragon's probably my favourite, but it's not luchador, probably my favourite mask, Ultimo Dragon. Ray's had some good ones, don't he, as well? Like,
Ray's become the de facto lucha. I've got
generic shout.
somewhere in here. Yeah, I don't know where to put it.
Not Kid Lycos, then.
No.
I'd probably say of the luchadors, I've got a soft spot for. I don't even know if it's not really the mask with Penta.
Oh, LA
it's
Park,
more the makeup. But yeah, LA Park. LA Park is that's definitely the go-to one.
No, I think you
mixed in with him coming out to Thriller as well.
What, Matthew?
It's not a mask, is it? But me, Super Callow looked awful. Did he? Remember Super Callow?
Sunglasses baked into it. The day I found out his name literally translates as super cool was that I fucking hate him. So fucking cringe. Awful. I don't care if he was a good wrestler or not. Always hated him. Segundo Valente asks, who's Nigel? Or more accurately, Nigel, am I supposed to know who that is? You'll find out the answer to that on Tuesday night. As well, Matty.
I've already found out who fucking Nigel is over this weekend. Fucking hell, I feel like I know
him. All right, fair enough. Going on from there, would rather watch Bam Bam Bigelow or William Regal if forced to? Based on this week, William Regal.
Regal all round, because for the segments.
I feel bad. I don't know if you want to do your notes apology here, JP. Like, I think we could have given Bam Bam a fair shake. I think we looked at it through the lens of when we do a mixtape, it's very much like it's the matches, isn't it? Whereas I think as far as having an interesting career and being an interesting guy that did a job on a roster, that's where maybe that's damning with faint praise, because Gareth will just say he's shite and say I'm dancing around it too much. But maybe we didn't give him a fair shake. I don't know. Maybe we could have focused in on like a run somewhere, or Japan, or just ECW, and maybe had some of that nostalgia that maybe I think you carry with Bam Bam, rather than ice cold looking at some of those matches, which didn't show him in his best light.
I think I should get into the notes apology for it, because in my head it was like part of the fun and part of my thinking of it was like, because he'd been to all these different places, so I was like, I just wanted to pick and choose little bits from it as well, just to choose, because part of the problem is that in Japan he never has those, like, he has some big matches, but not really all that many. It's not like he's in there against, say, it's not a Vader run where he's in there against, say, Misawa and the rest of the lads. So, like, I think that's often, a lot of the times, that's part of the problem with him, is that he doesn't have those there. And so it really would have been like, I mean, if I'd gone back and said, okay, we're going to look at Bam Bam Bigelow's run in ECW, I think that would have been a much more enjoyable show to do. But then there's also the part of it, it's like when you're looking at it and you're hearing people talk, you're reading people talk up this Jerry Lawler match, and you think, oh yeah, I'll put that on there, that'll be fun. And then you sit there and go, what have I done? I've made an enormous mistake here, lads, and I'm deeply sorry. And there's no defending that. That is like, there's no defending the indefensible for it. But
Matty was more positive than most of us, though, Matt, I'd say.
Yeah, on the actual matches, yeah, like there was a few in there that I enjoyed, but I can't defend that Jerry Lawler match, JP. I don't think anyone who's watched that can defend that. Like that was rough. That was rough.
And also, just to go to Chris Platt's comment there in the chat, good luck if you're trying to take a piss in Bam Bam Bigelow's tea. See how far that fucking gets you, because I think he'd go into full bounty hunter mode, wouldn't he?
But JP,
I'm assuming he's a New Jack type of bounty hunter as well.
That like Barry Windham match, I was high on out the most of us, and I loved that at Starrcade. So yeah, you know, he had his moment. As you say, Ben, it was just glossing over his whole career, wasn't it? Instead of a specific run, which might have been better. But you know, he's a legend.
I think the problem with Regal is at least with Bam Bam, at least with Bigelow's career, there's an element of wackiness to it. And I think with Regal's career, and I know there's wacky segments, but when it comes to matches, it effectively feels very much like, I mean, we could probably say the same thing about Bam Bam, but it's the same sort of match you're seeing again and again. There's no Spike Dudley and Taz style spots in a William Regal match. It's just him doing his wrestling stick, and then 10 minutes later it's over, and you're having to hear from people who are talking about his match against Chris Benoit on Velocity as if it's one of the great matches. And go, no, I've watched it. It was a match that my eyes looked at, and it lasted just under 10 minutes. And then afterwards, if I hadn't made notes, I wouldn't have fucking remembered a single thing from it. So
next up, Paul asks, as unfortunately Swerve and Page can't feud forever, who says? Constantly, he does say. Who would you book Swerve in a program with on his return? Good question. Current affairs as well. Understood the mission statement. Good question, mate. Oh,
MJF for me. Yeah, they've teased that as well backstage, haven't they?
Yeah,
I think that'll
true.
be a good.
Pay that off. Mox could be something you do down the line, but maybe not with where those characters are right now.
I'd say that, yeah.
Can't go right back to Brian, can he? Unless that's where that circles back round to, as far as getting the belt back to Swerve off Brian.
Mox
it's
is
like
a
the Hangman
shout,
problem, isn't it? It's like
I
enjoyed the Jeff match, and I enjoyed that that's a match that's happening this week on AEW on Wednesday at Arthur Ashe. But I want to see Hangman in more serious top line stuff. But then when I actually think about who that would be with, I don't know.
I see. It has to be a top line guy, and at the minute, if you think of the ones he hasn't had those feuds with, it really is MJF and Moxley. Outside of that, he's already had Brian. Could it be more developed? Could it take a different twist without the title? Sure, but we're not going to get that because of just the nature of like Brian not being like kind of like a full-time guy. So if it's a feud, it'll happen something in like isolation for a very select period of time, and then Danielson will go away. Ospreay,
Ospreay and Hangman could work if we're talking of faces. And Hangman could wrestle. There's not that. Who's another face? At the minute, except for Brian. Yeah, this is it. This is it, mate.
I actually think you could have an interesting Moxley Hangman feud, and I know that's two heels in a match, but it'd be as two heels who don't like each other, with different, like Hangman as this like isolated figure, and Moxley with a kind of crew of people. I think there's an interesting dynamic you could play out there as well.
Mark Bucklety, what has been the thing this year that has been the biggest positive surprise for you in wrestling? Example, specific wrestler, storyline, or show/promotion that is so much better than you expected?
I mean, this obvious one is Jake and Fatu for me. Like I know I've liked them, but the way they've handled them and pushed them ever since that debut, like he's been fucking.
Didn't need to learn where the hardcom was, none of that.
Even that segment on SmackDown, you say SmackDown wasn't great. I mean, that segment where they were getting patted down through security and he just beat the shit out of them guys, that was unfucking believable. And like, he's just going to be, hopefully they go all the way with him and just protect them and then some, because I just want to see what he can do. Like,
yeah, that's a hard agree. I can't think of any. Do you know what? I'll say Will Ospreay on US TV.
Yeah, as a character as well.
That wasn't guaranteed that would work. He could have been a guy who just delivered matches and then just sort of fell into the shuffle. Instead, straight away, it almost felt like, oh, this is a guy who's in the top line mix of the company. And his promos were so much better than what we'd expected, and worked for TV, because that's the other important thing. Delivering promos at live events and stuff like that, particularly in New Japan, where it might be a post-match promo and everything else. I think that for me, like, it would be either Ospreay or Jacob Fatu.
I'll say as well, Damian Priest's like elevation. I know he's not, I'd never be the guy, but he exceeded expectations, and he's just that cool, like upper mid card, like baby face now, and you could plug him into a main event if you wanted to. I think they handled him well as well. I think he's done great this year.
I could make an argument for Moxley. Never thought I'd enjoy him again.
Yeah, there you go. It's been, honestly, yeah.
I could make an argument for Swerve. My expectations were high, and he's beaten those expectations this year for me. It's like this run that he's had. I could make myself a babyface with you, Matty, and just say WWE for talking promotion. It's been better this year.
You said that last year. You're all right. You're on board now, Ben.
I know. What did I give? I gave him promotion of the year, didn't I? Well, I'm not getting it this year out of you, mate. I'll find a way. I'll start watching Tokyo Joshi Pro or something by.
I'm not going to mention NXT because I'm terrified too now.
There's a question about that coming up.
I know.
Here's a good one. Lagita Negra. Given it's been a topic of discussion recently, with his place in WWE in question, in brackets, by Matty. But how do you view the Cody switch from AEW to WWE? I love this question. Was it the correct move for Cody? How would WWE have coped with Cody to finish the story? Was there a place for Cody amongst Bryan, Punk, Cole? And is his absence felt greater because a lot of them didn't end up working out? He does say we'd have to answer those point by point, but it's more of a butterfly effect type question. So yeah, to the point. Yeah, Cody switched from AEW to WWE with a bit of hindsight, lads.
Oh, you have to say.
Think about that one. I'll be one sec.
You have to say. I mean, my initial thoughts were, it is the right move because look at the situation he's in. He is one of the two big regular guys in the company. He shares screen time with The Rock and Roman, and doesn't really look out of place. He looks like he belongs in that mix. So you have to say that is the right move. From a business perspective, it also was that move established him as a star, as a proper star. And you look at, I don't know, it's a strange thing if you go into attendance and business metrics with WWE, because it's the company as much as it is any individual star. But if you get that wrong, that will have some degree of an effect. And it's not had a negative effect on it. The problem was with him in AEW, and I know we spoke about this when we did the show on this, and we spoke about his run in AEW, it was so haphazard. He wasn't in the feuds you wanted him to be in because the character and that particular company, it would have required, it's weird. In AEW, I'll always still think his big money role would have been as a heel. Ultimately running roughshod over the company after reneging on his promise never to challenge for the world title. And instead we never got that. So he was always only ever at a certain level against certain people. So you have to say it's the WWE move.
Yeah, I agree. Got to be better.
He's a shining example of the type of wrestler who I think I said that on the Discord. Not every wrestler deserves to book themselves, or not every wrestler should book themselves, or to a wider point, not every wrestler should probably write their own promos. That's another thing. All of that is it's like an overcorrection to the Vince era, isn't it? The wrestlers know best, let them sort it. And AEW, we found out that Cody did not know best and should have been protected from himself. And I hear what you say there, JP, about the heel run was the way. We shouldn't have got to that point, should we? We shouldn't have got to the point where he couldn't be the world champion. It shouldn't have been a thing. It just was through whoever you want to blame, probably largely Cody, and maybe the lack of leadership there to stop that happening. Just booked himself into oblivion. If he'd have stayed, if he really, really wasn't willing to turn heel, I don't think it would have went well. I think his legacy is much better that he jumped back, because you can draw a line and go, he had that indie run that bore AEW, which is an amazing Hall of Fame resume type thing to do. AEW launch was a Hall of Fame type resume thing to do. And then in WWE became an actual likable top line babyface, the likes of which they haven't had arguably in decades. And there's that too. So yeah, I think that's kind of it really. There wasn't really a place for him in AEW. In the end, it shouldn't have been that way, but it was the reality, I think, is the answer to the question.
And he would have been that stubborn, wouldn't he? Because he was doing at the end of AEW that he wasn't turning heel when he was getting booed out the fucking building. So, and ever since the second he appeared in WWE, he's been presented as an absolute megastar. So he obviously did make the right move, and which would have been wild to think if he would have stayed in AEW at this point. Because I was only thinking before, it's 2.5 years ago now. It's it's flew at it, it really has. And look at as JP said there, look at the position he's in: 2 WrestleMania main events, 2 Royal Rumble wins, and he probably, dare I say, and I'll say it here now, Ben, I hate this, he probably will get the main event over Roman next year, which fucking hell is absolutely insanity in my mind. But it will.
Quarterback, mate. That's what he is.
Roman's given back an even after 4 years on top.
Well, we don't have you for much longer, Matty, so I'll let you end on a few questions in a minute.
Yeah,
we'll do a couple of quick fire wrestling ones first. Dan Thomas, actually there's a non-wrestling one in there. He does ask what the bet is for next year's live forfeit, so let's get to that in a minute. But he also asks top 5 wrestling dosses, and do we have any dream guests we'd like to get on a show for the future? I know for dream guests, you've got a few, Matty, whose DMs you might well be in.
My ultimate dream guest is just a one-on-one with Russo. I've always wanted to do that, lads, you know what I mean? Just to ask him where the ideas. I
won't be there, mate. I'll be off.
I'll just be me and him. It's not going to just be me and him. I'd absolutely love that though. Like, I honestly would just go all in on that. Like, but there's loads in the. I have to speak to anyone with this story and background and stuff. So I'm always interested in anyone's journey.
Good to get Hamfoot on a proper spotlight. We should do that at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Sidgwick as well. I'd love to do something with. He's on the list. Yeah,
be a big tag match that, Benno, wouldn't it? You and Sidgwick, me and Hamlet. Be a proper tag team match, that one.
What we got an open for is, like John Pollock has said to me multiple times, if you ever want me to something, let me know. I just feel like the pressure's too big there. Like, I'd have to be the perfect idea, but that would be... My number one dream was to have a coffee with him and Tim Hortons achieved. Do a podcast over on GRAPPL with. I'd love to do that. Throw Brandon Thurston in too as well, but again, the pressure would be lovely. And obviously, to do something with Way. That'll be fun.
I would say, having not done like a sort of a big proper podcast with John and Way would be something I'd love to do. But I think because I love a business metric, just picking the brains of Brandon Thurston would be something that I'd love to do. And that would be that one. I'm trying to think from a wrestler perspective who there'd be that you'd want to speak to at this point. That's a bit tougher. I mean, unless you wanted something confrontational and just said Hulk Hogan, just have give him a bollocking and just call him a liar.
I tell you what I did enjoy though, boys, when I done that show with Alan Forel. So I'd love to do more stuff with him, because it's so knowledgeable, and no matter what your tastes are in wrestling, he's a guy, like, we've had this like banter or debate before where I might get a bit touchy. He'll never look down on you for whatever you like in wrestling. That's the way it should be, and he'll have a good adult conversation about it. So that's why he's one of the fucking best. Like, so definitely more with Alan.
Another big one for me to throw in there. Always skated around it, never done it. Got to sit down with Andy Quilden one day. That'll be that'll be a fun podcast. Having met him for the first time this year, like old friends. I think that could be fun. Thought we could maybe find a way to arrange that maybe at some point, JP.
That'd be a wonderful epic. That would.
It'd be an epic,
so
definitely.
much stuff.
Be like getting Will on. It'll be a long show. What's the bet for next year's live forfeit? Then as Dan asked there, Matty. Do we have anything we can ask? Double or nothing?
There's nothing at the minute. It's got to be something Roman Cody based going forward, but we'll see how the tag match plays out and the crown jewel plays out. We'll see who gets that main event.
We could be Roman Cody, couldn't it? It could be something to do with like who's going to be Cody or Jacob.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out then.
There we go.
If anyone's got any suggestions as well, let us know. That.
Last couple then before we let you go, Matty. Martin Bushby asks, and I'll keep you for this one. 20 years since the 2004 Ted Petty Invitational. Are you guys fans? I heard you mention before on AskGRAPPL. I reckon it's more your wheelhouse than mine, the TPI, Matty.
I couldn't tell you now who was in. That was AJ in that one. I'm pretty sure he wasn't he? Yeah. Was he around the time? But I used to I borrowed that on a physical DVD off Gary, and I'm sure I have it for years and TV as well.
AJ wins it,
yeah, that's it. I remember that. Yeah, so it's I like to go back and watch that, to be honest. So that could put that down on the dock actually, Ben. I might add that one just to go back and see who's on there and stuff.
Samoa Joe, Roddy Strong, and Arja McGuinness, Claudio Castagnoli,
here we go.
Jimmy Rave, Matt Sydal, Super Dragon.
Oh, we are.
Eric Cannon, P.T. Williams, B.J. Whitmer, Mike Quackenbush, Chris Hero, CM Punk, Austin Aries, Brian Danielson, Alex Shelley.
I mean, we need to get that down. But it's what I'm getting mixed up. I remember I was going to say Fleisch and Johnny Storm, but that was best of the best in CZW, I think, as well, wasn't it? That tournament. So, I go way back with some of the indies, lads.
Yeah, it's funny because like it's almost the ones before, like you say, the King of the Indies ones and that birthed ROH. I was already banging to ROH, so I was already seeing these guys all the time. So like the fact that they all worked the tournaments at the same time wasn't necessarily, and it wasn't, maybe I wasn't following your guys from the other coast as well, so it didn't in real time didn't feel as big a deal as when you read that list of names back. Now it does, so I don't really have the nostalgia for it, but it'd be fun to go back and watch it. You want to talk about empty chairs and hearing people go to the bar? Classic IWA Mid-South. There are more wrestlers in that tournament that I reckon are probably in the stands, or at least there have been TPIs when it's.
Well, at least that's part of it back there, Bev. They're an indie fed. They're not a national television company. Do you know what I mean? At least that's the given.
Yeah, and also one's true and the other isn't. But anyway, that's
oh, sorry, the attendances are full. Yeah, they're full. Sorry. Go on. Let's move on.
That, mate. No one's saying that. Anyway, what have we got? Trying to think one more for you. Any that stood out for you, Matty, that you want to answer?
No, I think the ones that I was tagged in, I think you've asked most of them, haven't you? Earlier on there before, like, so I'll end on any more non-wrestling ones, or
all right, so we'll end with IMGTR63's group of questions, because I think a couple of them fit you, Matty. Do you think Dave Meltzer even watches the matches he rates anymore? No, no, he does.
No.
He does. I believe he does. I do. I just think he's, set in a certain way. Do you prefer to watch Halloween or Christmas movies? And are there any periods of time, capital letters, you want to cover on the Time podcast with Liam?
I'm Halloween over Christmas movies all the day. No, my wife will disagree with that because she absolutely fucking loves Christmas movies.
Christmas over Halloween, mate. If I could take Halloween off every year on this podcast.
No, Christmas is a better holiday, but Halloween movies are better. There you go. I'd rather celebrate Christmas, of course.
Christmas films are way better.
No chance, Ben. They're all the same. You
could say that about Halloween films.
But come on,
there's more of a broad spectrum with Christmas films because you could count. I'm not getting into the fucking conversation. It's boring. It's not Facebook. Die Hard. You could count Home Alone. You could count Elf. You could count. Do you think
there's more variety?
I count
Halloween as well. Does that more?
I count Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I look forward to watching Christmas films every year. Or the films I watch at Christmas, maybe more accurately than necessarily Christmas films. I don't enjoy. The irony is, as JP knows, I'll enjoy a Christmas horror more than I will a Halloween horror. I'm a man of contradictions. What can I say?
Big horror guy, JP. I love it. I love them.
Same here. I'm a big horror guy. So there's like always they're like my go-to films, and it's just what we watch on the reg. Is we watch pretty much every horror film that comes out, whether even some of them are bad. Or like kind of any of the Blumhouse ones and stuff. So I'd almost be going for Halloween over Christmas. Bar humbug.
Time as well. That's a good one. Maybe more early 2000s, late 90s. Like that's what I like all that. Like so.
Yeah.
I think, maybe 99. I think we've done 98, didn't we? I don't know if we've done 99 yet.
I don't think we've done 99.
Yeah, we've done 2000. So maybe a 99 or a 97, Benno, you know what I mean? So
you have to do it on a week where someone doesn't turn up because I'll be right in their seat. Next one will probably be a Christmassy one, won't it? It'll be December. Talking about so. Maybe a big excuse, just get everyone on. Just let me in. That's come on.
We should do a 5. It's a Christmas special, Benno. We'll let you in for that.
That's what it is. Look what it is.
Yeah.
Or just you take a month off, Matty. It's fine. I'll take you seat.
Give me permission there for once, so fair enough then.
If you want to leave it there, RN just ask bold predictions for the next 5 years. Leave us on that, Matty. Go on.
Is this in wrestling? Is that what it was?
Paul. Give us a wrestling and a non-wrestling. He does ask wrestling related only, but sorry, mate. I'm going to put a non-wrestling in too.
Fucking hell. Bold prediction in 5 years. I mean, fucking hell. I don't even know where to start. And anyone else there, lads? I mean,
something wild like. Not this. AEW goes out of business, that type of thing.
No.
Tony Khan owns the WWE.
No, that won't happen. That'll never happen.
In some form or fashion. Is this that wild? A contracted WWE wrestler and a contracted AEW wrestler go the other way. Do you know what I mean? There's an AEW guy on a WWE show. There's a WWE guy on an AEW show.
Oh, you mean like...
I'm not calling it a full invasion pay-per-view, but something.
Or maybe they're wrestling in Japan or something, maybe. I can't see them turning up on... Well, I think maybe Shane will be on Dynamite. And we're still
that's a good that. Vince McMahon dies. I'm throwing that in there. In the next 5 years.
Could happen.
Fingers crossed. I'm just trying to think of what... I was going to think that wrestling is on streaming services and there isn't like a cable TV outlet. And at that point, we're talking about and I don't think that's a shocking thing to say because in 5 years' time, I think that's just the nature of TV. It'll be you'll see a lot of these streaming services just sort of merge together, and I think that's where wrestling will end up as part of like packages on streaming services rather than being like on TV. That's pretty much it. I mean. Outside of it, like wrestlers going to companies, I kind of almost expect it. Like if you said to me MJF in WWE, I'd be like, well, yeah, he kind of should do.
Yeah.
At the end of his contract, that's exactly where it should end up.
All that's just the nature of the business now with these two companies, maybe. So, I mean, people retire, obviously.
It's a shocking one.
Retire.
Tony Khan not involved in AEW like there's ownership stakes and stuff, but he's not booking and he's not like in charge. He's doing other things.
I can't see it. I just don't think he'll ever give that pencil up, JP, when he's booking these matches like for the likes of Benno and stuff like that.
He'll die with it in his hands. Is that not?
Yeah, he will. He will never ever give that up, mate. Never for me, anyway. And fair, and you know what? Fair play. Why would you? You know what I mean? And he's got other things going on, but he loves it, doesn't he? I have to give. I always give him that credit. He absolutely fucking lives for it. So, fair play.
Real last question, Mikey. What discontinued food item would you wish they brought back? And then Steph can have you back, Mazzy.
I will. I'm gonna go something chocolate-based. Fucking spiders. Like, why aren't they still here?
I've got them.
They were absolutely the greatest chocolate bar that ever existed. And I know they're literally just like spiders and dairy milk, but they were so fucking nice. Like, or Milky Bar chews as well. The chewy Milky Bars that were like 20p. Do you remember them? They were unreal as well. So fucking nice. And did you still do Lucasade, Ribena, sparkling Ribena in a can, but it was spring water instead of like dead fizzy? It was just nice and just, it was lovely. Lovely. You know, that's not food, but that's a drink for you.
Beer wise, I'm sure you can still get it somewhere in the world, but you still take. You ever have Cus Kenya? It's an amazing beer. From somewhere in South America, Peru, I think it's Peruvian. Can't get it anywhere anymore. I miss it so much. But I'd back you, Matty. That's as far as it goes.
I've only got a drink and bongo.
Oh yeah.
apart from if you visit the Congo, where it's sold in mass quantities.
Well, just can I leave you as well before we officially, as now I said it on the couple of shows, officially booked Paris, lads, for next month. So we've just been watching some, like, you know, the street videos.
There'll be a walking tour. There'll be someone.
Yeah, and some nice little bakeries and some, obviously, the main stuff. Going to see Jim Morrison's grave, JP. That's the reason I'm going to
It's in all the world, aren't
it? Gotta try. It's huge, isn't it? It's massive, yeah. Gotta do it, haven't you, before you can't, lads. So yeah. But thanks very much. I thought I had to dive on, lads, because
good man, paid off the bit. I was one. You'll have to listen back now, mate. I spent the first hour just giving you shit. Said all hands, mate.
What else is new? Fucking hell.
I had a question later. I remembered what it was that I was going to give you grief. But you'll just have to listen later to it.
I will. I'll skip through in the morning on the way to work and afterwards as well. But boys, good rest of the show. I will see you on Tuesday with me Nigel thoughts, and really, I can't wait for it. You know, seriously, it's been a good. Been good.
Yeah, rather good cliffhanger. That's the one. Matty's thoughts on Nigel McGuinness and the Unifier match. You are solo review. You're opening the podcast, mate, with a match review of that one. So get your retro shoes on.
I am, but also there's going to be a match on there. Like, I'm so shocked of how much I liked one of these matches. That I'll leave you with that as well. It's fucking like really, really good. So yeah. Anyway,
can't wait,
have a good one, boys.
Like
take it easy.
Cheers, mate.
Ta-da, boys. Ta-da.
Andy asks here, is our disco crisps still a thing? Yes, they are. I brought a multi-pack this weekend.
Only a salt and vinegar or prawn cocktail, though. Am I right? No, there's cheese and onion as well, isn't there? There's green, blue.
Break the gimmick here. A rare cheese and onion I would actually eat if it was all that was left in the house. I'd probably have the discos. I think they're that nice.
Oh God, yeah.
And that's a strong cheese and onion. Should go another about 20 minutes, JP. We usually run about 220, don't we, on our Spotlight. We'll speed round some of the other questions. If there's any left over, maybe I'll save them for a possible future grapple lads coming up. Or
can I just say, I bought the Aldi equivalent of Space Raiders.
Oh my
God. I can't remember their name. They're not great.
I was going to mention this. I'll wait for the pre-show. Have you, and I bet you have ever had the little equivalent of Vimto? I've got it in here in this. It's called Mixto. I feel like I've never noticed it before. I bought it. The first time you drink it, you're like, this tastes like Vimto, but something is wrong. It's very clearly not Vimto. It's got its own slightly different taste, but I'm fucking addicted to it. I'm knocking it back. I finished the whole bottle in about 2 days. Mixto, that's the one.
I've had the Tesco's equivalent, which is like 80p of it. It's like something zero. I want to say it's called like Mizzo or something like that. But
how did they get away with it? It's like TNA, isn't it? What's Mixto doing in the Impact Zone? Like it's rocket chips. That's it, right? Yeah.
God, that's lazy on Aldi's part. Really is.
I've got the Lidl equivalent actually. Also, I've had them in the house recently, where it's like a multi-pack of pickled onion and beef ones. Good stuff. Look, if you're trying to save money for chips, which I am, Lidl and Aldi are your best friend. Back to the questions. Ewan asks, has JP watched Queen of Villains yet? We had another question by someone else asking that. I think on the Patreon, Zahid asked that question too. Yeah, kind of answered it earlier, but you were going to get to it for next week, aren't we?
Yeah, we
Sorry,
are.
I've started one we've already answered.
It's all right. I'll end up reviewing the whole series hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. Got a time penciled in. I feel I can spoil it, but me and Karen are going to be talking about that. So
there we go.
On post. So I'm really looking forward to that because I think that's going to be an awesome show as well.
To bring Karen back home. Bring her back with you, mate. Bring her back with you. We all love Karen.
My knowledge of All Japan Women is kind of weak, which I think even for both of us, like this is like very much like learning curve stuff. But I would recommend it.
I saw Galazzo Dan of all people be like, I really enjoyed the show, but I've never actually seen the matches, and it just made me feel better. It's like, Matty mentioned Alan Farrell before. Alan's the loveliest man in the world, but you always feel inferior, don't you, when he's on the show? It's like Alan's knowledge of wrestling compared to any of us just dwarfs us, and you don't want to be the idiot on the podcast. That's one of those situations where I felt like that, and then when Dan said, I was like, okay, fair enough, then I'm not that extreme for having not seen them either. So yeah, I'll probably watch it at some point too, maybe for next week's Spotlight. Stay tuned. Zahid does also ask, what's a feud of the year and what football rule would you remove from the game? Oh, that's you just read out for a bull with JP today on that one.
Do I need to go for this? This by the letter of the law fucking bullshit that you see the moment a footballer kicks it away, that is just indiscriminately brought in depending on which side. Arsenal, in which case it's a red. It's certainly a second yellow, if not a straight red, if they can get away with it. It's like that kind of shithousery has existed as long as football has fucking existed. It happens. Players never kick it back. They always fuck about with it. Yet you can't selectively decide, oh, this time we're actually going to do something about it. And even if you can go, well, it was stupid. It was a millisecond after he blew the whistle when he kicked that ball away today. And I'm dating it heavily for this one. Bullshit. And the Declan Rice one was bullshit. And that will never happen to Man City or Liverpool throughout the entire course of the year.
At risk of being out my depth, I was going to mention it earlier, but like genuinely, I think that's the biggest problem in it. It's like I just don't think the VAR is actually the issue. The issue is the people behind it. It's always been the people behind it, and it's the quality of the people they've got behind it.
Yeah.
And that's always been the issue, and that doesn't go away, does it? Humans are the problem. Like, that's basically the answer.
I actually think the standard of refereeing is not improved at all. And there's no onus for them to improve, and there isn't the push on them. Actually, you need to get better at this, and you need to be, because it's well paid for it. And there's so many dubious things, like Michael Oliver going over to the UAE to referee a game for 20,000, and he's paid by City's owners for it as well. I've gone full deep into the fucking referee truth of business on this, but I'm fucking tired of them. I'm tired of them ruining games. It happens a lot. Happened on League of Ireland on Friday. But what was the first question? It was the
wrestling related feud of the year. We're going to come back to that because somebody asked us a bit later about some year end and stuff. I'll follow up the footy question with another footy question from Chris with a C, who does say that he bottled asking it at the live show. Footy question for me, JP. Was it Goodison Park the last season of use with Everton before being bulldozed? And he wonders how I feel as an Everton fan, given I've spent many years going to the games. Do you feel compelled to try and get to a few visits before the end of the year, or you're not asked? I mean, my default at this point, as everyone knows, is not asked. But there is truth to that, in that, like, I have had that thought, like, and everyone's having that thought. That's the thing. No matter how bad we are this year, it's going to sell out every week because, well, at least for the Premier League, everyone wants to go and have that last experience or that last few experiences of being there. So yeah, it's been a while. I can't even. If you said to me, now, what was the last time you were in Goodison? I'm not sure what it was. It must have been probably some rando cup game. It wouldn't have been as far back as when I had the season ticket. But I'll be sad when it's gone. Yeah, it will. I would like to just one last time be sat there in my old season ticket, centre of the Gladys Street, X103, I think it was, behind the goal. Be great to be back sat there again at least one more time. I just don't know what the circumstance would be. Maybe as it has been, people have been saying, it's not getting bulldozed right away. You could build flats there, but I used to live there, so I'm allowed to say this. Grew up around there. It's not the nicest fucking area, as JP knows. I don't think they're going to be very quick with any kind of redevelopment of the area. So I think there'll be opportunities to visit.
Yeah, it's not like Highbury, which is all full of luxury flats, but that's because it's in Islington. You don't get big Islington vibes from that part of Liverpool and around there. But I always think of it, it's like a classic old school ground. It like falls in where like you're close to the pitch and stuff like that. So it reminds me very much of Highbury from what I've seen of it on TV.
I'm actually off. I'll be interested to go to the new ground and just see what it's like. It's a bowl like every other ground, but fuck me. Every time I drive past, I almost crash because I'm like looking at it going, fucking hell, that's incredible. Especially where it is. It's like on the Dock Road, and there's like, it's becoming the new hipster area, JP. There's all new bars. And there's one old, this is very much pre-show content. There's one old man pub opposite, I think it's called the Bramley Moor. And it's been there forever. And it was like one of those pubs that just serve dockers, because that's where the new ground is. It's like the middle of nowhere, not in the city centre, just outside of it. And it's where all the old dock workers were. And that pub has somehow remained standing this entire time, just for this day. I reckon they were probably going to go out of business 4 years ago. And then they started to get a sniff that Everton were building that ground. And they were like, we've just got to make it through these 4 years, lads. And we're going to be in the money. They're going to make so much money. And more stuff is popping around there now, like all these cool little hipster spots and stuff. So it'd be great for the city, as more politicians than me would say. But it genuinely will. Going from what's the modern equivalent of Oasis reforming, and would you fork over the cash to go, Shane's Silver? What's the wrestling equivalent of Oasis?
Of Oasis forming,
the gang getting back together. Who would that describe?
Which gang? I mean, I don't know if we're talking. I tell you what, CM Punk and Colt Cabana.
For me, it would be. That was my instinct answer. The Second City Saints.
Yeah. That would probably be the one. Weirdly enough, I suppose people would say the Elite and throwing Cody into the mix with it as well. But it's not like they left on bad terms or they dislike each other. You need the bad terms side of it.
Yeah, they'll post a picture together in the next 5 years and we'll do it all together in one place, and it'll be a fun thing on Instagram for the day. Punk and Cabana is very much the Gallagher brothers, isn't it? In the likelihood of that happening. Punk with anyone, really. Anybody who's crossed Punk over the years. Ortiz and Santana, Liam says on the chat. That's a good one. That's the, as Liam will know and always say, that'll be Offset and Quavo getting back together, more likely with them too, but with the way their feud's gone. But I'll go with that. Going from there, we have Jamie O.D. Do you ever wonder if the origin of the word kayfabe is itself kayfabe? That's just blown my mind. I think the answer is
probably.
Is it a fake? Is it a kayfabe story? The origin of kayfabe? Is it just a thing we say?
It would be very meta, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was actually the case. Because it always felt like it was a group of people who just the wrestlers' hatred of the word fake bothers them so much that they have to keep up this mad pretense around all of it. And the fact that its origins were in being, well, again, does that mean all the Carney stuff back in the 1910s and the 20s is all sort of bullshit stuff in there as well? It feels like that. Because I feel like I'm wandering into dangerous turf about talking about carnival people that I'm really going to try and avoid. But there's like a certain reputation that's given about like levels of honesty and things like that. And I think maybe it just fits in with that.
Next wrestling, I don't really. We'll go through that.
It's a hard one to answer, that, isn't it?
We'll find out. Speaking of which, Ewan does follow on with that Everton question, saying, given they've been in the Premier League for decades and never done anything, would you say that it's a mean snooker of football teams? I'll have you know. Oh no, it was before the Premier League. We won the FA Cup in 1995. It was in my lifetime, though. I'll take it.
They were the big club when I was a kid. Mid-80s. Everton were like, they were there.
That's why some of the Irish support Everton, isn't it? Everton from that 80s period.
And there was always that. I always thought that part of the anger around things, even like Heysel and the band from Europe, was it happened at a time when Everton were pretty much set up to win a big European trophy.
You won't stop him.
Yeah.
He'll say borderline offensive things. Anyway, moving on. What have we got? RWOBKE, who told me to spell out the name rather than try and say it. Because every time I read that, I read it quickly as Robert Brockie, and I remember it's not Robert. Who is out there, though? Having a great man. I think he went to see Idols this week on Instagram. We love Robert. Original King of the Mountain. What are your thoughts on the future of wrestling journalism and analysis once it looks like Meltzer retires? In addition, while he's obviously not above criticism, how much damage do you think the Conrad Thompson podcasts have done to Meltzer's reputation amongst a certain segment of wrestling fans who just got off the call? Similarly to how WWE documentaries did in the DVD era. Yeah, there's an element of retcon, and this is the thing with Meltzer. Like, it's like the arguments I often have with Matty about AEW attendances. There is a conversation to be had about AEW attendance, and it can be a very negative conversation. But we should talk about what actually happened rather than the made-up nonsense that Matty hears in his various sources. Same thing with Meltzer. Actually, to the letter, we've had the conversation about Meltzer. There are things he actually says and does that are worth gigantic criticism. The way he talks about women, the way he generalizes about like women as fans, the way he talks about abuse cases. Like, there's so much room for improvement with Meltzer on that stuff. His sourcing. Like, often he can get caught in a lie in the web of wrestler lies. It's a whale full of carnies, and you should probably know better than to get fooled by. Remember that Dragon Gate story and all of that stuff. Absolutely deserves those pelters, but absolutely, yeah, the Conrads of the world of kind of, and Conrad, ironically, allegedly a Meltzer fan, have created this bad faith loop of stuff where it's just like, oh, Meltzer's biased to this, Meltzer's biased to that. Brandon Thurston gets that. Speaking of the future of wrestling journalism, you're biased because he's printing hard facts about how like I heard it this week on the Brandon Thurston show. Him and John, say what you want about their guest, but talking about the AEW TV deal, and Brandon's point of view was something along the lines of, it's a great deal for everyone involved. It's a big money deal. It's a success. Talked about it in positive terms, overall, as like, because AEW as a TV product, and he'll crunch those numbers, is worth that money when you look at them being number 1 to 3, mostly, in the weekly rankings as a TV product. They deserve that money, and it is earned, and it is accurate, and it is a fair amount to pay for AEW's packages. However, he will in the same breath talk about the separate thing, which is AEW's fall in popularity. And I saw people not even clickbait that, just do tweets where they haven't listened to the podcast properly. Like, they got 100, they're getting 170 million, and here's Brandon saying that they're going down in popularity. It's like, can you not hold two thoughts in your head? Like someone like Brandon can, and talk about both of those things at once. Like, and it's like that idea of, well, you're biased against the AEW because you're saying that, not realizing that Brandon answered the question. Dave, who also peddles a lot of those same numbers, a lot of the WrestleNomics was built on looking at the fall in Raw ratings and looking at WWE metrics, and Dave Meltzer's analysis on that stuff has been consistent over the years as well. Just because they're picking on your current favorite doesn't mean they're biased, and you get that, and we see it on Twitter. We get it when our stuff gets out there, out of our normal echo chamber, and it's like, oh, they're having to go with AEW again, or they're having to go with WWE again, and it's like, oh, they're so biased to this, they're so biased to that. Everything's one or the other, isn't it, in this culture war we're in? And Meltzer gets that as much as Brandon, as much as anybody.
Yeah, I think I always go back to the round table that I did on wrestling journalism, which had Steph and Will on there. And we had this conversation about Dave Meltzer. I think what will happen is when he isn't doing the Observer newsletter anymore, he'll become more revered as time goes on. And there'll be a full appreciation more for him as the historian. The problem is, as a wrestling journalist, he's expected to do multiple different things. He does his historical stuff, which is arguably that's the thing he's best at above all else, is giving that context of, say, like the obituaries for wrestlers who passed away or people involved in wrestling. But he's also expected to break news. So there's that kind of, and he's also expected to be an investigative journalist and be a business journalist and a critic all in one. And that's just too much for one person to do. And I often wonder if the future of wrestling journalism is where these roles are taken up by individuals, but in just certain very specific areas. So when it comes to business news, I just always think of Brandon Thurston, because if you listen to him enough times and you follow his work, you know that he's viewing this kind of like impartially, unbiased. These are the numbers, and these are what the numbers tell you. And whether or not you like it or dislike it, it doesn't matter. It's numbers, it's math. And that's just how it works. Like, dislike doesn't come into it, but it's got bumping up against, like you said, this kind of tribalism that exists that is incredibly toxic. and just does nothing but throw misinformation into the ecosystem. And I want to kind of blame it's the kind of what happened with Trump when Trump first entered politics, this idea that you can just disparage things that you don't like, believe in alternative facts and things like that because you want to believe it. Well, what you want to believe, you may want to believe something, that doesn't make it true. That's just that you want this thing to happen, and people can't remove themselves from that. And I think that's kind of like where we are with it, really. But sorry,
like, it might be a crass comparison, but it's like Vince, isn't it? The conversation for so many years was who's going to be the next Vince, and the answer was always it's probably not going to be one person doing all those roles. It's going to be a mix of people, and that's what it's turned out to be. It's Triple H doing one thing, it's Nick Khan doing another thing, and it's the rest of the TKO doing others, and they're healthier because of it. Same thing with Meltzer, really, that you say. He's a jack of all those trades. Well, right now, who's the best scoopster news person? It's Sean Ross Sapp. Quite clearly, whatever you think of him. Who's best at like the business analysis? It's Brandon Thurston with John Pollock there as well. You know, throw John Pollock in for some of those other Meltzer jobs as well. Simon says there he thinks the flagship does better obituary than Meltzer these days. You could make arguments like that. It's already happening, isn't it? We're already seeing like those jobs be spread among people who are maybe overtaking Meltzer in some areas. There'll never be another Dave Meltzer, but that's good and bad.
The problem I have with Conrad Thompson, for example, and all the assorted podcasts for that is the people he's gone on there are the most unreliable of narrators. They're bullshit merchants, and they're more interested in peddling their own story or their own narratives. And that's an issue. That's a massive issue within wrestling because you've got professional liars. Effectively, you've got the equivalent of people doing shoot interviews all of the time. And as I know from watching a lot of the shoot interviews, they were bullshit. They were people's point of view rather than anything else. So, yeah.
Right, if there's more than 5 questions, we'll call it, but I'll try the next 5. We'll see where we get. What have we got next? I won't ask the meal deal one. Out of the 4 grapple hosts, if you ran a show, what would your roles be? Out of booker, promoter, ring announcer, commentator, and social media. That's the one I wanted to ask when Matty was here. Who'd be the booker? Who'd be the promoter? Who'd be the ring announcer, commentator? Who'd be the social media person?
I think I know which one I would do. And that would be ring announcer / commentator. I think that would be the thing that I feel that I would want to do just with the voice. That would be as far as I would go.
I think being
definitely
honest,
not social media.
None of us are. I think I probably would be booking the territory because I can't help myself, but take over. I'd give people these jobs and then do them and take over because I'd be the booker. Gareth would be the promoter because Gareth is the promoter. Gareth is GRAPPL. We still, even though GRAPPL as an app doesn't exist anymore, it still feels like it's Gareth's entity as much as it is ours. So yeah, ring it out to commentator. I could see you being the face of it, JP, the small man. I could see that working. And
You'd
social media, we'd give to Matty like we did in real life, and then after 2 months of him doing it, he'd lose he'd be logged out of Twitter because he stopped doing it and stopped logging into Twitter. And then another month later, he just hasn't asked for the password again, despite that allegedly being his job. But there we go. There's the good one I was going to give Matty. It's a true story. It is. But there you go. The answer is yes. It ends up with me doing the socials. Yes. So that is kind of what happened there. Chris says book a Gareth promoter. Matty, ring announcer, comms, social media banner. Fair enough. That could work. What else we got? Yeah, non-wrestling one. Phil Gordon. Go-to meal deal choices. Main snack and a drink. Did that on the live show, did we not? Chicken, bacon, and stuff one was mine. Packet of the decent McCoys, a biggie pack, and don't know what I said for a drink. Maybe a Ribena would be the choice for me.
Paprika Walkers, Cherry Coke Zero, and one of those triples because I'm normally starving and I want like kind of. I want bulk, basically. So one of the chicken triples, which includes chicken and stuffing in there as well. That would be my go-to each and every time.
Oh, that's you. You might hijack the show with an Arsenal chat. Yes.
Did already, mate.
Who would you book to? This was another Matty question we didn't ask. Who would we book to take the belt off Cody? Or you can leave it on him for another. It's actually better he's not here because I can give a real answer. Or can you leave it on him for another 12 months if you want? Because it's not a competition, is it? You know, he doesn't have to overtake Roman. I think you just need to get your money's worth, as I said earlier, with Cody as champion. I would just do the big matches we talked about earlier. Get the Roman rematch in. Get the Rock match in. Get the Punk match in. If you're lucky, get the Gunther match in. But again, I can't see Gunther dropping his belt anytime soon, so you probably don't get to that. Unless you do a champion versus champion gimmick with a fuck finish. And then you get to Randy Orton. As I was an actual person to take it off him. Matty didn't make a terrible case for Rock. It'd just be soon if they were doing it for me.
I wouldn't. My personal choice, and he wouldn't be reliable enough, not from an injury and fitness perspective, but if you had Punk as a mega heel up against Cody on one night of Mania and the other night was Rock Roman, and then you could have him take the belt off Cody and just deliver like kind of vicious, nasty promos in the build-up and afterwards as well. But that would be what I would like to see, but that relies on Phil not being made out of balsa wood.
Very true. I don't see that. Maybe Jacob Fatu's my one. I think I'd go with that. If you're going to make a guy, it could be that. There you go. David Sykes asks, with the Dump Matsumoto series top of mind, if you create a similar TV series, which wrestler would it be about and who would you cast as the role? And with Kevin Steen potentially coming out of retirement, how would you book his first month if he was assigned in AEW?
If you were going to do it as a TV series and you were going to do it kind of properly and you wanted to kind of do one of those bigger state of the wrestling industry type stuff that would go along the way, and I know this is kind of like a slightly obvious answer, but Mick Foley, just because you could have like the point where he's in exile effectively in doing death matches in Japan and then going to ECW and stuff like that, and then ending up being a champion in WWE and then having TNA. I think there's like stuff that would be dramatically good that would work, and you tie in all of the big stars around that point in time. I think that would be someone. I mean, outside of that, I don't know. I mean, it's not really a wrestler per se, but like someone like Paul Heyman. But again, it's probably going over kind of like a sort of a similar type of ground. And it's how much of the stuff he said from his past is probably just not true. The Studio 54 stuff, I just expect that to be bullshit.
Bollocks.
Whereas Foley's
story,
stuff, I kind of believe it.
Tale.
Great tall tale, yeah.
Cody, you could absolutely do as well. Again, tall tales. You could do a young Rock type series with Cody is probably most likely, where it's just like all of this bollocks about him being backstage at certain big events in history and all of that. He probably, for that type of show, though, he'd probably be my choice.
If you wanted something that had like the kind of ending to it as well, I suppose Terry Funk is a multi-part drama talking about someone, you know, the retirement, the relationship with his wife, the fact that he breaks up with her and then gets back with her as well, all of the places that he's been to there as well at the same time, and about how kind of revered he is. You'd feel kind of like feel good, even if the ending would be sad. I think that would kind of work from a dramatic perspective.
Second to last question, because I'll ask another one last. Dylan Shaw, GRAPPL Trios team, only one GRAPPL podcasting team and one allowed outside for support. So 2 wrestlers to coexist. I don't know what he means. GRAPPL Trios team.
That means getting rid of one of us, basically, is what he's basically suggesting.
I thought he was going to ask who we could face from another podcast. That's how I'm interpreting the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Who would be on manager? So who would be the 3 in ring? I think I could see Matty wanting to get out of the work and being the one on the outside as our manager, as me, you, and Gareth. Obviously, Gareth has the boots and trunks. Cario's in ring as far as a GRAPPL team. Who could be face?
I see. You would say flagship, but there's only 2 of them, and that's the other thing. Who that third person would be? I mean, unless we went full
John Wayne Brandon,
John Wayne or Brandon, or even WH, like into the mix. That would be that would probably be one that I'd go with.
You could do the Dudley Boys. You could do Adam Wilborn with Hamflet and Sidgwick. That'd be be big money in that. Do that on YouTube, you know, like Kai Cenat and that too with
he's a cracking host, is Adam.
Matty's on the outside for losing, in there for winning. Platt knows him too well, 100%. I think that's what he meant anyway. And then we'll go for the final question. From somebody called Matty Edwards. It says, what's the best empty arena match in wrestling history? Is it The Rock versus Mankind at Halftime Heat? Or is it the Bucks and Okada versus Callis family from Dynamite last week? Even when he's gone, he's
I've got one that I think Stadium Stampede.
Yeah,
the first one. That was an empty arena match.
There you go. There's a real question. So I'll do an answer to your question. Oh, we can't end there. All right, I'll ask the other question, which is, any front runners for the Grappies at the end of the year? That'll be coming in a couple of months. JP, anybody? Swerve Wrestler of the Year, I think. I'll find an argument to make AEW Company of the Year. I don't know how, but I'll find
my worst wrestler of the year.
It's hinging on this, Go on, West. Who's the West?
Tetsuya Naito. I think it's just, this is the year where it's just.
I think it's Solo Sikoa. I thought that's what you were going to say. I'd say.
Okay. At least he can physically move, which is a very
observer
low
logic
bar.
though. Most overrated means most overpushed, doesn't it? And I go overpushed past the station.
Okay.
Solo. That's what I'm saying.
Nigel
versus Matty match of the year. There might be a tag team match based on Tuesday. Well, there we go. Good 2 hours 30, JP, and that was there you go. Thank you to both our patrons and non-patrons. You can join the Grapple Discord for free if you didn't manage to get a question in, and you want to join in next time too. Might make these a bit of a regular thing on the main feed, and these slow such weeks. Wait for the AEW TV deal will be announced tomorrow. Vince McMahon will die, or go to prison. Things will happen, I bet. But yeah, a slow news week. Very much enjoyed that, JP.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was either that or we watch any amount of shite indie shows that were going on around the world. Which not even
that weekend preview was rough. Listen to Weekend Show, by the way. We had a couple of good chats regardless.
We did, but
one of those.
And the other one would be trying to find to watch the Royal Road tournament, which as soon as I found that Joel Redman was in it, I was like, oh, I'm interested. And then he was lost to Kenta Miyahara. I went, oh, that's me done. No, I'm not going to bother with it now at this point. Yeah, that ship has sailed. But yeah, I love doing this. This is great fun.
Well, stay tuned for what we've got up next week. Definitely be covering the Vince Netflix documentary. We'll figure out exactly how. It's a bit daunting, that one, 6 episodes, but we'll find a way. But yeah, on top of that, obviously, no, we won't be watching Wrestle Princess. Sorry to you, but maybe we'll get in before Weekend Show. Midweek news done. There you go. Perfect place for it, JP.
Yes.
But, we've got.
I'll make sure I cover the results.
Good man. There you go. That's coverage. That counts. But anyway, goes to our Discord conversation. But yes, biggest thing going on this week on Tuesday. We'll be live with our patrons as we continue the live Dealer's Choice Month as it gets to my choice. Nigel, am I supposed to know who that is? We'll get the answer to that question and more. Can't wait for that. Before it, we'll have the Benno pre-show or the Richard Benson pre-show, I think is the official nomenclature. So we'll be going with that, and I'll be introducing you all to the theme song that I've crafted for it, JP. But I'll play that. Won't ruin it now. You can probably guess what it probably is. But yeah, that's going on Tuesday. Probably do a weekend show on it. Keep the Thursday going just because obviously Wednesday is Arthur Ashe and Grand Slam. So we'll be covering that in some detail on Thursday. And then it is a WWE pay-per-view weekend next week of all things. So we'll have Matty back for me and him to likely argue about Bad Blood next Sunday too. So yeah, look forward to oh no, Sunday after that isn't it? That's the week after. Yep. So yeah, look forward to that as well. All coming up this month, plus Matty's Dealer's Choice. Plenty to sink your teeth into. Anything else, JP?
I think that's basically it. If you want some of this fancy merch that I'm wearing now and that you're wearing, you go to chopped-tees.com. Got the whole GRAPPL collection on there as well. So, and also go to grapple.bigcartel.com if you want to get some of the original logos in there from Gareth at the low price of £6. So get yourselves across there.
Brilliant. There we go. So, yep, thank you to our patrons. Thank you to our live patrons for all of you for tuning in. Thank you to our Kings of the Mountain, Connor O'Loughlin, Eddie Sarburns, Chris Platt, Ewan Cameron, and Carl Gack. We will catch you again on Nigel. Good night, all.
Bye.
See ya.